TFNB, your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your Bank for Life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak.
Here we go on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you've had a really good day, and hopefully you are part of it now with this show, 365 Sports, every afternoon, 3 o'clock until between 5:30 and 6, depending on what we have. 3 really good guests lined up today, actually 4. Brett McMurphy on 3, Trey Wallace from Fox, and then also today, Taylor McCard, former Rice quarterback with CBS Sports, and Justin Spears on Arizona football. He'll join us today, too. Craig Smoak from bright red yesterday to blue today, the color scheme of the Rangers. And also, somebody was asking me about, do you normally wear a hat? I go, yeah, that's his trademark. And, of course, if we ever get to 100,000 subscribers, he's taking it off. Is that for one day, one show, or is that what?
I don't. Let's get there first, and then we can discuss the particulars. But we're nowhere close. So I'm not shedding the hat anytime soon. I threw that out there as just a thing where a couple of people had asked about it, and it's just a habit I fell into, and it's one of those things where you just did that every day. So now it's like weird to not wear a hat, kind of a thing. And also it's very much that where I didn't wear hats all the time. Then I just started wearing them, and then it just kind of became the thing. And I like to block myself from the sun, like to block out the UV rays as best I can.
Yep.
Now, that's actually like an unintentional side effect, I think, is that maybe I will age a little bit more gracefully because I've accidentally like protected myself a bit more than most people. But yeah, then at that point it became sort of a thing. It'd be weird to not do it, but I will for 100,000 subscribers. So we got a ways to go still.
Yep.
And when that day comes, then I'll maybe never wear one again. We'll see, but got to get there first.
It is your decision on what you do, how long you do it. I am someone that I wear a hat when I'm playing golf, obviously. But you know what I don't do? I don't wear sunglasses. Do you wear sunglasses?
Sometimes.
I don't wear sunglasses, and I used to wear them all of the time. When I had LASIK in 2004, I wore them quite a bit because you need to, but I just don't. I wear contacts, so I should, but I just, for some reason, don't feel comfortable wearing contacts. When I'm on the beach with my brothers down in Florida, I'll sometimes have them available, but I just that doesn't bother me. A lot of people like to wear them too. So good afternoon. A little bit of an insight with the 100,000. We're at 70, almost 6,000 right now. And we'd love for you to be a part of the growth of what we do every single day. Thank you for those of you in the chat room. So Arizona quarterback Noah Fifita, Fifita. We had a chance to see him at Big 12 Media Days. Seth Doege, who is the offensive coordinator at Arizona, here's a quote from him on Noah Fifita, and it's a pretty cool story from Brent Brennan about when he first met Noah Fifita. There's no doubt he's the best quarterback in the league, so people are hitting this guy up to tamper. Let's say we'll pay you $3.5 million to come play for a year, he told Yahoo Sports. And you know how it is? When you go 9-4 on a team that was picked dead last in the Big 12, now all of the coaches are getting hit up for new jobs. So I sat down and said, dude, what is your plan? This is Doege to Fifita. Man to man, brother to brother, you know there's real love here. What are you going to do? Because if you're leaving, I need to think about what I need to do. But if you're staying, I'm with you. And then he said the exact same thing, and that was it with Noah Fifita. I didn't know about some of that backstory. The time that Brent Brennan met him for the first time is when he was on campus to go to an HR meeting, and Fifita jumped on the back of a golf cart that his wife was in the back second seat of this golf cart. Brennan didn't even know he was on the cart. So he went in this meeting. His wife comes in the meeting, knocks. He goes, hey, Noah Fifita's out here wanting to introduce and say hi to you. So he left the HR meeting. Fifita seems to be class act and one hell of a football player.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona very fortunate that he decided to stick around, although I don't think for anybody who's followed him and his love for Arizona basically since the beginning would be surprised by that. He's a big part of the reason why they've had some of the talented players that they had decide to come Arizona, guys like Teteroa McMillan that had other options, other big school options, but instead decided to be a part of something there in Tucson. And so he deserves a lot of credit for that and a lot of credit for their success over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, had seemingly hit a pretty good stride with Jed Fish, and then he leaves for Washington. Fafita sticks around, as well as McMillan. They had a down year entering the Big 12 for expectations, and then last year bounced back in a pretty nice way to set them up for what they think can be a year as a wild card Big 12 contender. And I just say wild card is somebody who's not one of the obvious couple of like put your next paycheck on the line. You're probably not picking Arizona, but if you're sitting there with a little bit of flexibility to make some choices and have a little bit of risk, then I think they're one of the stronger, smarter picks you could make to have a little bit of risk, but also have a team that, could very well find themselves in Arlington at the end of the year. So they seem to really like what they have coming back. Again, the missing pieces in the secondary from a year ago are sort of where you start looking with Arizona, but it's not like that can't be replaced. So we'll see how well they go about doing that. And if they do it well enough, then I think the rest of it's pretty good. And you feel great about their chances to go win 8 or 9 games or maybe even more. But I think in a league last year, we talked a lot about the quarterbacks, and that turned out to not quite be a level of play elite across the board wise that we were hoping for. A lot of guys who just were kind of okay or maybe a bit above average, and not too many guys that were truly fantastic. He was the best quarterback in the league last year and showed with all the honors at the end of the season, first team all Big 12. And I think he should be considered the front runner to be that guy once again. But I know Bear Bachmeier and various others will have a say in that. But you wouldn't be stupid for putting your money down on him repeating as that.
No question. Just a cool dude and a phenomenal player. And Seth Dagey talked quite a bit about him, and we'll have Justin Spears on to discuss more about Arizona's overall football team as they go through their fall workouts right now.
I just think he's unique. He loves Arizona, and that was his whole goal was to raise Arizona as high up as he could. And so, I'm sure there were a lot of offers that came his way last offseason, and it's understandable because everybody's looking for the best quarterbacks, the best players they can get. And, it's not like he's playing at Ohio State where it's nearly impossible to wrangle away a quarterback. You probably felt like if you were a bigger school, you'd have a chance to do that, but he's been very loyal. He's been clear in that ever since he stepped foot, even before he stepped foot on campus as a full-time student. And I'd like to see that he's one of those guys that is going to finish what he started. And he is an all-time Arizona legend who's got a big year in front of him. So I'm very excited to watch him. And he's an easy guy to root for as well. And I think having Dagey back's huge too. So those are just a couple of the reasons why people are high on the Wildcats.
One of the notes that Dagey had in this article that I was reading, he has grown so much, Fafita. He's kicking me out of the huddles. That he's like, just leave us alone. We got this. And that's unbelievable experience, leadership, knowledge, and all of what the IQ of a quarterback. So that is a little note about Fafita. And then there's Baylor's DJ Lagway. Transferred. He was a high school kid, of course, down in the Houston area at Willis. Then was the number 1 quarterback of his senior class and committed to Billy Napier and Florida. And has had hit and miss. Then gets in the portal. Baylor was looking for a quarterback to replace Sawyer Robertson, although they also had younger quarterbacks on the depth chart. And when DJ Lagway hit the portal because of his legacy with his father playing running back at Baylor, he then is recruited by Jake Spavital, Dave Aranda, and many others. Here is running back Keenan Hall on what DJ Lagway means to the Baylor offense, at least from what he's seen so far.
It don't matter who starts. To me, they're all talented enough. I think for us, they just got to go out there and perform. It's a production-based business. At the end of the day, we got 4 or 5 talented guys in there that can get the job done. And I think they can start anywhere in this league. So for them to stay here, come back here, that's a testament to obviously Coach Aranda and Coach Aaron Hunt and their staff, and obviously our staff on offense. So I'm happy to have that much depth because, as you know, in the last few years, guys have gone down. So I always thought, and I'm tried and true in this. Everywhere I've been, I've had multiple running backs, 3 or 4 running backs, because I understand the physicality part of the game. You got to have a guy to go in there and be able to execute and be explosive and do the things we need to get done in this offense.
That's Keaton Hall, running backs coach. Craig told me that I said he was the running back. So, again, I was wrong. He's the running backs coach. Great, hell of a recruiter. Good dude. And his thoughts about DJ Lagway. So then Ryan Roberts writes articles about prospects, NFL future, etc. Now, listen, some of these guys haven't even taken a snap at their new school in real time. But Ryan Roberts on A to Z Sports had an article about what NFL scouts and personnel people have seen from the college quarterbacks during August. And yes, some of the bigger names, Levitt, Arch Manning, among others, are part of that. Dampier, Mensa, etc. Here's a couple of quotes, though, in the article from Ryan Roberts. No bullshit. Lagway was the best quarterback I saw all August, and I saw all of the top 6 in this next year's class. I went in there ready to throw him in the trash. He is easily the best arm talent of anyone that I saw this offseason. It's not even close, to be honest. But then again, he was a 5-star for a reason. This offseason was the first one he's ever had, at least a full one. I was more impressed with how decisive and accurate he was. He just has never been available for a complete offseason, and he's beginning to turn heads. A second NFL scout to Ryan Roberts. The Lagway stuff was funny because I kept passing scouts who kept saying how good he looked for like 2 weeks before I visited. And then I'm like, yeah, he's right. They were my second to visit last week. When I got there, it became apparent that they were telling the truth. So that's great news on DJ Lagway. Haven't seen a lot of him as they open up, of course, against Auburn in Atlanta that first weekend in September.
Yeah, I don't know what that analyst's track record is with draft picks and judging guys, but yeah, that's certainly a promising review of DJ Lagway amongst the crop of guys who clearly he expected to be better and weren't. Like he said, though, he's a 5-star for a reason. I mean, that doesn't just get thrown on to guys, despite what some people may think from time to time. You do have pro scouts who are analyzing and watching all the film or going out to watch these guys in camp. And yeah, I think every once in a while there might be a little bit of a bump for certain people in certain situations. I think we'd be silly to not acknowledge that that's happened a time or two when a guy goes from small school commitment to suddenly at Ohio State, he goes from a 3 to a 4. I mean, we've seen that kind of thing happen 100 times over the 10, 15 years I've been following recruiting. But for the most part, and there's reasons as to why that happens, and it makes sense sometimes because a guy just is a fast riser. But for the most part, point being, these guys know what they're doing and grading talent. Now, you can't account for the fit and the coaching and the off the field and all of that all of the time. And I think for DJ, it's just a lot at once on his plate, a lot of high expectations at a big time school and a challenge he just wasn't quite ready to conquer, or a bar that he wasn't quite ready to reach as a player. Doesn't mean that he can't reach it this year or the next couple of years. So I think for anybody who wrote him off after what happened last year in Gainesville, I think that's a bit short-sighted and foolish. Everything's been sounding really positive, but I know at the same time, one of the things that is a concern is their offensive line. So I think he's going to be good. I think he'll be in a good headspace. I don't know how well they're going to protect him. I do think he's got some valuable weapons around him, and it seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. So, yeah, I'm excited to watch DJ Lagway in a change of scenery and seemingly in a better place, better headspace. And, yeah, let's unleash this talent and live up to that 5-star billing. But he's going to need the team around him to play well. I think, yeah, he's a guy that you were probably too soon to write off, but also not trying to get my expectations too high either. I'm kind of probably somewhere in the middle from the two extremes.
Yeah, you'd rather see this and then see it again, like in person, and validate what they're saying. But that's NFL Scout has no other reason to say that. It's a generic article about prospects, various quarterbacks. By the way, speaking of that, TCU is going to face Billy Edwards Jr. North Carolina will have him start in that game in Ireland. He's been at Wisconsin. He has also been at Maryland. He's been at Wake Forest. This is his fourth school. and has been given the number one QB1 job for at least the opening game against TCU in Ireland, and that's Billy Edwards Jr., named the starter for Bill Belichick.
Man, I cannot wait to watch this car crash unfold in real time, starting with TCU. And maybe it actually is not a car crash like so many expect it to be for North Carolina this season. But, yeah, count me as interested in what the Tar Heel year 2 Belichick experiment looks like. We know it's been a bit rocky at times during this offseason, and doesn't really change my thoughts on the game itself, which is that I expect TCU to win this ball game. But yeah, I think North Carolina is a team that who the hell really knows, but seems like everybody's kind of leaning towards this being a net negative year, and probably the last time we see Bill Belichick in college football, barring some contractual things. But yeah, Billy Edwards Jr. has been around for a while now, and we'll see what he's capable of doing for a Tar Heel team that can use any good news it can get.
Here is Kenny Dillingham. I agree. I don't know. Is this if North Carolina doesn't show more than just a pulse, are they will they move past this? And a lot of it, I guess, has to do kind of with the contract. I haven't dug into that, but it has obviously been a disappointment. Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, always a good listen after practice, was not happy with the football scrimmage that they had, the practice they had yesterday. And here's Kenny Dillingham.
Yeah, I mean, I felt good up to today. Today was a bad day for the offense, worst day by far. We didn't look like an offense today. Couldn't move the ball. When we did move the ball, we got penalties. So they got to wake up. I told the defense, great job. Defense playing great. We're flying around, playing hard. Offense, not good enough today at all. And it wasn't just because the defense played well. It's one thing when you don't do well because they make great one-on-one plays. Like, that's football, right? Like in the scrimmage, there were some great one-on-one plays made on defense in the low red zone. Great effort plays, stopped explosives. Shit, I'm fired up about that. Those effort plays are still showing up on defense, but now there's critical internal errors on offense. Those are the things that you can't have. You can get beat one-on-one every once in a while. That's fine. But you can't have critical errors. And we had way too many critical errors today, and they got to wake up. I mean, we're going to move Clayton Smith back tight end starting tomorrow. Challenge some people. You know, we got to create competition. The team's about competition, so Clayton's going to go back in the tight end room for one purpose, create competition.
That's Kenny Dillingham. He's fun to listen to, very energetic, and he doesn't hide. Sometimes there are messages he is sending based on what he's saying, but there he is. He wasn't happy after practice on Tuesday.
Yeah, I mean, if a coach is talking to the media, typically they're sending their messages, and that's what that usually is. So whenever you hear them pointing out something pretty specific, it's clearly the message they're trying to get across. So, yeah, team needs to have more competition. Sounds like the tight end room specifically. So Clayton Smith will just hop on over the line of scrimmage from defense to offense and try to stir things up a little bit. And sounds like a typical Kenny Dillingham post-practice session. I mean, I've listened to a lot of them, and he's a rambunctious guy, a lot of energy, and sounds like every coach in middle of August with 2 weeks to go before the season starts. It's not good enough, and they need to work really hard to make sure it will be good enough. It's just typical coach speak, but obviously a couple of particulars that he's focused in on there. And, yeah, big fan of Kenny Dillingham's and what he's done at this point. Very interested, and keep trying to not use like the same words because there's so many things I'm interested in, but I am interested in how Arizona State follows up last year, post-Levitt, post-Tyson, year 3 in the Big 12. What does that look like for them as a tier 2 kind of contender team behind Tech and BYU?
Yeah. Now, by the way, Clayton Smith is from Queen City, Texas. Jason Peters' hometown, the longtime veteran and eventual Hall of Fame offensive lineman. He went to Texas High School, and I remember him back when he was there. Fantastic player, and the fact that he's being moved over back to tight end is kind of how athletic he can be. So we had Brett McMurphy on last week with a very good segment on many things college football. He also kind of previewed us that his top 25 AP ballot and when that was going to come out on Monday. And he also said to us that he was going to sit down. He had told me he was going to go to New Mexico and sit down with Art Briles, who's now the football coach at Eastern New Mexico. This was the story that he had out from earlier today. It came out earlier today with Brett McMurphy featuring Art Briles. First time he's coached in college as a head coach or in college since the time he was fired back in 2016 after the sexual assault scandal at Baylor. It's an interesting article. It's very in-depth. There's a lot of things that I had not heard Art say before. There was this question, and we'll ask Brett about this, and we've heard Phil Bennett talk about this, that Briles in the article said, Craig, that he, after the UCF, the Fiesta Bowl loss to UCF, I'd heard him discuss that he didn't want to leave it like that as far as with Baylor putting up such a dreadful performance in that game in Phoenix. And they enjoyed that week, by the way, too. But that he had an agreement with UT, a 6-year deal, and that it kind of comes down to semantics. They wanted to interview him. He thought that his resume was good enough to be his interview and resume, and they wanted to meet with him when he came back from Phoenix. Did not work out. He did not leave, and the rest is history. He, of course, won a couple more, 3 more years, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and then was gone in May of 2016. We knew that story about UT and how maybe things would have been different had he taken the job in Austin with the Longhorns.
Yeah, man, Art Briles. Yeah, talk about a lightning rod. I mean, I immediately and unsurprisingly saw Brett post a story, and within minutes, dozens of people pissed that he's even talking about him or bringing his name up, much less spotlighting him. And then a whole gaggle of people who somehow this man just made like the most loyal people on earth, I guess through some cases friendship, obviously, or professional connections or whatever, that refuse to believe that man's ever done anything wrong in his life, or certainly never did anything to the extremes that maybe was portrayed at times by ESPN or other folks online. Yeah, that was such a rough time period, the fallout of all that. I like to just not really focus too much on looking back at that time period, because so much time was spent living it and seeing everything that was going on. But yeah, I do remember that story and the talk about Texas' interest. And yeah, it's been pretty known, I guess maybe not officially out there, but known for a while that he was being courted by Texas and they wanted him. And they, as he points out, offered him a 6-year deal, but he did not want to go through the full customary interview process. And I think it's fair to say, well, why not? What are you worried about? And I know his answer to you or to somebody else at least years ago was that, he was unsure about taking the job and this, that, or the other, but you can also see it from other people's point of view and be like, well, maybe you're worried that people would dig a little too deep in the closet. Now, it depends on who you want to talk to and who you want to believe on. Would they have uncovered anything? Would the sexual assault scandal at Baylor have been,
this is well before.
Yeah.
There were some stories that eventually, with Tevin Elliott or whatever, about some players at Baylor that had been in some deep trouble. But the issues that started to become a boiling pot was in the spring of 2015 when Samu Kawachi transferred in from Boise State. That's when, in the trial, and he was accused and convicted, and that's when the doors opened up and all hell broke loose.
Yes, but some of the things brought up, like Tevin Elliott, happened before all that.
No. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, was he not wanting to do the interview because he was worried that maybe something would pop up? Or, like, I've just heard that used as a reason as to maybe why he decides not to do it. But I think the more logical thing is that, yeah, he wasn't sure and decides to stay at Baylor, whatever the reason may be. Yeah, there was clearly interest there. It's been talked about a lot, at least in those circles, especially at that time, the Fiesta Bowl week when, the Austin American-Statesman sends a reporter to cover the whole week because they were fully expecting Briles to go to Texas after that game. So they had a UT reporter embedded basically.
Yeah, Brian Davis.
Yeah, in Phoenix to cover Art Briles and then cover what was going to be his last run and then his eventual departure to Texas. And obviously that didn't happen. And then, a year or two later, it all completely blows up. So, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, Brian Davis actually had called me earlier in the week and said, hey, I'm coming when the practice schedule was. He's coming in. He was there like the next day and was there in Phoenix because he thought he was going to get something with Briles, who it appeared was headed to the University of Texas. That did not work out. We're now joined by Brett McMurphy on 3.com. Brett, you told me a few weeks ago that you were going to go out to New Mexico and visit with Art Briles, and obviously a lightning rod figure. I enjoyed the article. There's some things in there that I did not know, and I thought I knew quite a bit about him as a person and also with what he had been through. In the end, what was it about the time you spent with him that may have been the most surprising or something you did not know?
Yeah, Smokey, I think just finally, talking about, the frustrations of, the 3 jobs that he was basically offered at Southern Miss, Grambling, and the CFL. And then basically, the university presidents at both schools signed off. The owner of the CFL signed off. I mean, they announced the hirings, but then the blowback from the public basically had the schools and the professional club change their mind. And I asked him specifically about that, and he's like, and again, it's like so many of these things that he says are like so unique to him. And he's like, Brett, I didn't worry about it. It's like you either make the first down or you don't, and then you move on, you go home. And just saying that, and look, I met with him in Dallas. I went to New Mexico. So I spent a number of hours with him. And I mean, I've been doing this a while. And when you have that much time with people and you talk to people, other people that know him very well, I think I got a pretty good read on it. And I really do believe what surprised me that he's not bitter. He doesn't have any regrets. I heard you guys talking about the Texas job. All I can tell you is what he told me. All I know is what Ian McCaw told me. Everyone else has all their different stories and stuff. Whether he would interview or not because of what they may find out in his background, I think that's 100% hogwash. They're going to do their background check whether you interview or not. So maybe they wanted to hear him answer something specifically. But I think the biggest thing, Smokey, was that he doesn't have any regrets. He's not bitter. The thing that means the most to him, which is that the way his players reach out to him. And, I didn't get this in the story, but he also said a really big thing for him is seeing these guys that he coaches graduate and being the first person in their family to graduate, and just seeing how these nieces and nephews look up to them and to see this. But bottom line is that I may have said this to you back when I told you I was going to New Mexico. If people like Art Briles and they read my story, they're going to like Art Briles. If people hate Art Briles and they read my story, they're going to hate Art Briles. I was not trying to change anybody's opinion. I was simply reporting what's gone on in the past 10 years with Art. And then I could not talk about the past 10 years with obviously the tragic situation with his parents dying, and then kind of how he got started. And then it got into, his success at Baylor. I never had any intention of going and revisiting all the stuff that happened at Baylor off the field. I wasn't reinvestigating that. I'm not re-reporting that stuff. People want to go into that. There's tons of stuff out there, both positive or negative, depending on your viewpoint, that a lot of people have done. That was not the intent of my story. If people are upset I didn't go that angle, well, then you're upset. Okay. But that was never my intention. It was simply, I'd been talking to Art for a number of years and trying to get him to talk to me. And, when he got the Eastern job, I reached out to Kevin Fife, the athletic director, and said, hey, I've been trying to get Art. I know, a couple of people that have talked to him on my behalf. Could you please continue that talk? And then finally, I guess I wore him down. One thing, and look, you can ask me anything you want. I'll stay as long as you want. One thing that kind of surprised me, which I did not know this, is obviously the Texas thing. If he had taken the Texas job, how that would have impacted the University of Texas greatly. It would have impacted Baylor. But also the fact that he recruited Cody Campbell to Texas Tech. I was not aware of that. And I talked to Cody, and he said, yes, that was true. Actually, Cody's last game playing in high school was against Art's Stephenville team, coached by Kendall. And after the game, Art went up to Cody and said, "Hey, where are you going to school next year?" And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know. And he goes, "Okay." And then as soon as Art wins the state title at Stephenville, he gets hired by Mike Leach at Texas Tech. They wanted to further strengthen the recruiting in the state of Texas. And Cody Campbell was somebody Art recruited. He committed on his official visit to Texas Tech. I'm not saying if Art Briles doesn't go to Texas Tech, it doesn't recruit Cody Campbell, he doesn't end up at Texas Tech, but in a small way, because he does, think of how different Texas Tech would be right now if Cody Campbell was not a part of that school. It would be drastically different. And so it's weird, he really impacted three different schools, obviously with Baylor, based on, job decisions he decided to either take or not take.
Yeah, Brett, on the interview thing, I'm just kind of remembering it all from 10 plus years ago. And you're right. I mean, Texas would have done their background checks and they would have discovered anything. And the timing wasn't there to where the Sam Mukuwachu and all that stuff had happened yet, even though a couple of examples from prior to that were brought up. But yeah, it's I've heard a lot of different versions of how that Texas side of things went. And it was good for you to kind of get like the real deal on what happened there. And yeah, the domino effect is just absolutely crazy on what could happen with this. I was curious, you brought up just kind of how people feel about it. And I think the moment you probably even put the headline out, everybody who had their already set opinion probably went that certain direction. I understand the subject matter involving him is the largest part of why he's as much of a lightning rod as he is. But why does it seem like, in your opinion, he is such a lightning rod in comparison to other coaches? Is it just purely the accusations and what the subject matter was? Or do you think that he's a guy who just really rubbed people the wrong way over the years? Because I don't feel like any other coach really, maybe Dave Bliss, another Baylor connection, that really gets the reaction that a Briles does.
Right. I can just tell you what I was told by the people I talked to. And again, if you hate Art Briles, you're not going to agree with me. If you like Art Briles, you're like, hey, that makes sense. So all I know, again, I'm based in Florida. I'm not based in Waco. I wasn't there, ground zero. You guys were. All I know is Pepper Hamilton had the report. They were Briles, Ken Starr was fired, Ian McCaw resigned. A year later, the general counsel of Baylor puts out a letter that basically exonerates him from any wrongdoing. The NCAA, as messed up as they are, they determined that he did not break any NCAA bylaws. The NCAA did have additional comments that maybe certain things could have been done differently that weren't, okay? So those things have happened. So he's been, again, this is Baylor's general counsel. They've cleared him of all this stuff they fired him for. And then the NCAA, as wonky as they are, has said no violations were made. Kendall Briles, obviously he's biased. It's his dad. But he said basically, if you talk to people that know Art Briles, you know who the real Art Briles is. If you don't talk to Art Briles, you just believe the headline. And the headline, for whatever reason, where Art Briles was not for whatever reason, Art Briles was connected to the tragic situation at Baylor. But people would not either believe or want to believe that Baylor exonerated of this, or there was no NCAA issues. They were like, well, no, this is true because this media outlet reported this, or this person said this, or whatever. So I can't, and Art actually had a quote like that. He's like, I can't control what other people think. And Jeff Levy said that also. I can't control what other people think. All I know is frustrating, specifically about the two schools and the CFL, offering him a job and then basically, wilting under a lot of pressure. So yeah, I don't know why that is. I mean, I guess you'd have to ask people that really hate or despise Art Briles. I'm sure they have their reasons. And I looked at this almost in a weird way like a political figure. Everybody's so decisive now. You're either for somebody or you're against them. And I kind of think that's the way it is with Art Briles. Is people are either in his corner for whatever reason, the history they have with him, they know him personally, the different things that have happened since Baylor, or they hate him because of what happened at Baylor. They don't feel like it got correctly handled. Whatever it's cloudy today. Whatever they're thinking. So yeah.
Yeah, and then he won. And listen, whatever were the stories about him eventually and Pepper Hamilton, the thing, I'm going to go back to one thing I did not know, and I want to bring this up, and then we're going to go on to more about Eastern New Mexico. The athletic director, Kevin Feit, he was at Oklahoma State. He's a compliance background guy. And did I read correctly, Brett, that he was a part of that NCAA investigation with all of the information at his fingertips that a lot of us would never see, and he saw nothing that Briles did?
So,
that was a keynote there too.
Yeah, a little, almost correct, but pretty correct. So he worked at the NCAA as a compliance officer for the majority of his career. And then he went to Houston as working in a compliance office. He may have been the compliance director. I don't remember. Then he went from Houston to Oklahoma State, was compliance director there. And then he left, and then he became AD at Eastern New Mexico. So what he told me is during the process, when he knew that Art would coach there, he reached through his contacts, through compliance, through 35 years of people that worked at the NCAA in compliance that he worked with, of people in compliance that he knew were at Baylor. He specifically mentioned Chad Jackson, who is now at Auburn and was on the compliance staff at Baylor when all that stuff happened. And he reached out to all these individuals. I don't know who he reached out with at the NCAA, but obviously he has prior ties there. He reached out to Chad Jackson. Jackson told him, yes, I'd recommend it. His quote was, yes, go for it. So he talked to the guy who was at Baylor in compliance when all this went on. He talked to multiple people at the NCAA when all this went on. And he had a pre-existing relationship with Art in Houston. So he knew Art from that way. So in his mind, I think his quote was, I had more information about Art than anybody ever had, because I had all of these connections of people with the NCAA that were at Baylor when Art was there. And that's what made him comfortable with moving forward, as long, of course, as the Eastern president was on board with it.
Brett McMurphy with us on 3.com. He loves to coach, and obviously got back into it at Mount Vernon High School. He had the trips to Italy, what gave him a shot, and then at Mount Vernon as well. With what he's doing, and he's going to win. Now, I don't know how good they'll be right away, but he's going to win. His offense is going to be explosive. Jeff Hume, who you quoted, is a former high school coach in Waco and Mansfield and elsewhere, played for him at Georgetown. He told me that one of the biggest problems they're dealing with right now is that they can't keep up, that players have never had to play at this particular pace. And he's a defensive guy there, as you know.
Right.
What is it like just to kind of what he's doing, coaching a football team and doing what he loves to do?
So here's something I didn't know. Maybe you guys knew this. Maybe he did this at Baylor also. They don't run, after practice is over, they don't run any sprints. They don't run. They're done. That's it. Go home. There's nobody kicking a field goal. If you make this, we're not going to run. And I asked Trey Kibble, was it Rice last year? And he goes, yeah, we never run sprints. We go full speed at practice every day. And they do go full speed, and they run plays every 15 seconds. They don't huddle. They've got a 4-person battle at quarterback. If anybody out there is really concerned about Eastern New Mexico's depth chart, but they're rotating in quarterbacks every 15 seconds. He's got the headset on. He's talking to the player. I never saw him look at a sheet of paper to call a play. It's all off memory. He's just going totally off memory. I talked to one of his good friends that he's known for the past 20 years. Art was the best man in his wedding. He said, Art, and I didn't have a chance to ask Art this. I got this too late. He said, Art doesn't even have a playbook. He thinks they're a waste of time. He said he's never had his players run sprints. I don't know if that's how it was at Baylor or not, but that kind of surprised me at New Mexico. So what Jeff is saying, I totally agree. They went full speed the entire hour and 50 minutes I was there. And then, of course, Art made a joke afterwards that says, this ain't nothing. I could stand on one leg for that long, and I got a bad leg. But yeah, they are going to be different. They were running some plays that I had never seen before, where I knew because the quarterbacks had red jerseys on that there were 2 or 3 quarterbacks on the field at the same time. They're running around, pitching it, doing it, all this stuff. It was like the Harlem Globetrotters. So, yeah, like you said, good luck finding Italian film on what they're going to do. Obviously, once they start doing it, people are going to see what they do. But I think you'll recognize a lot of the same stuff he ran at Baylor. And like I mentioned, again, I didn't know this until I looked it up. Baylor, he set the record for most total yards in a bowl game, most yards rushing in a bowl game, most yards passing in a bowl game in 3 different bowl games at Baylor. Those records still stand today. So they are going to score some points. Good luck with Jeff playing defense because you're going to be on the field a lot.
You mentioned, Brett, that he's got a book that he's been writing, Truth Don't Lie, that he wrote in Italy about his time in Waco, and said it could be another decade before it gets released. I've noticed the last year or two that Baylor kind of opened up a little bit, like as far as at least acknowledging the teams from like 13 and 14 and not treating it as like this time period we don't talk about anymore. And I think his face maybe flickered in a hype video at one point, but it's still obviously like this weird breakup. How does he kind of view all of that in hindsight? Obviously, he has a lot he hasn't said, and I guess a lot he plans to say. But how would you describe sort of how that part of his life is looked at and is being handled at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I asked him specifically, how do you feel, about basically being defined by some people in what happened 10 years ago. And he said, which was a great quote, but again, if you hate Art, you're going to be like, oh, that sounds like something Art would say. If you like him, you're like, oh, wow. That's a pretty interesting way to put it. And he said, look, I can't control how people view me. He said, it's not hard to worry about how they view me, because if you talked about Michael Jordan, how do you define his career? By championships, by game-winning shots. You don't look at the ones he didn't make. Larry Bird the same way, and Tiger Woods. But he did add, I'm certainly not putting myself on that level, but you're asking how people define your career. I define my career by my players, by the ones that reach out to me, on Christmas, on, when they have a big moment in their life, on Father's Day, and they thank me for saying, hey, I appreciate what you did to me. Jeff is a perfect example. He said he literally got into coaching while playing high school football with Art, because he said we weren't any good, but he made it fun. And I wanted to do that and have those relationships with people. So, again, I don't think he's worried about, whether Baylor puts him in a hype video or whatever they do or don't recognize him with. I will tell you guys this. I'm probably hurting myself on breaking something down the road, but so be it. He's eligible for the College Football Hall of Fame once he stops coaching. But you need a school to basically propose or nominate to the College Football Hall of Fame. So it doesn't have to be Baylor. It could be Houston. It could be Eastern New Mexico. So obviously when he's done coaching, whatever that is, it will be fascinating to see, how that will be viewed by, the voters and the public in general. Will they want to put him in the Hall of Fame? I know I read that I guess he's up for the Texas Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Seems to be some really divided opinion on that.
Yep.
I have no clue if he'll make that or not. But certainly, again, all I can do is tell you what he told me. He said he's not worried about that. He doesn't care. He's more concerned about how he impacts the guys he's currently coaching and the past players that he worked with. And all I can tell you is give you examples. I'm asking him about his mom and dad, who, if people didn't read the story or don't know, died when he was 20. They were driving to see him play SMU in the Cotton Bowl. They drove on the way to the game. They were killed on the way to the game. A truck hit him head on. He finds out about it after the game. Bill Yeoman, the Houston coach, tells him, and I said, I need to ask you about this. And he goes, man, I was afraid you were going to bring that up. And I asked him about it. And the first thing he says is, Trey Kibbles, the wide receiver, is standing right next to it. And he turns to Trey and he goes, what did I tell the wide receivers yesterday? I told you to call your mama because I never had that chance. So that's all I can go by. That's not scripted. That's not planned. That's not a reporter's coming, let's give him this line. I mean, that's all I can go by. And so when he tells me all he's concerned about is how he's remembered by his players and what they think of him, then that's all I can go by.
No, you got in some things. Like I said, there's some things I learned along the way. And again, this is like PTSD in politics. Either you love somebody, you don't, no matter what. And
you're not going to change their mind.
You're not.
Yeah.
I said this as an example. You could have somebody that saves a kid out of a burning 10-story floor window and jumps to the ground, saves the baby, and there'd be people mad because they endangered the baby. And you know, that's just the example that I've used. Brett, we talked about the AP poll, and it came out. And again, I'm stunned. I didn't realize it was such a high percentage that about half the poll every year ends up with teams that are unranked. And you had nuggets throughout the day on Monday. How much of that is in your head? How much of those nuggets are maybe you keep notes? Where do you get that?
A lot of it is, my background. I went to Oklahoma State. Yes, they will accept anybody back then. And I actually worked as a student assistant in a sports information office. And so I was always like a stat guy. And so some of those things I've had for a few years, like the number one team has not won the national title. Bad luck for Ohio State. There's always a top 10 team that finishes unranked. So I've had a few of those for a couple of years, and I just, update it and run it back because it continues every year. And then for like the individual teams, you just kind of look stuff up. Like, okay, Notre Dame's in the top 5. They probably haven't been ranked in the top 5. I wonder how they've done. And then you look and you're like, wow, they have not done very well when they're preseason top 5. Or you look at USC, they're finally ranked. Well, under Lincoln Riley, when they're ranked, they finish the year unranked. So there's a lot of things like that. And then I did something also, which is fun, which again, it's like anything else. It's like, when we were talking about Texas, the Texas job with if you're a Texas fan, you're never going to say, oh yeah, we wanted our prize, because that may look bad in their eyes. So you're never going to admit that or whatever. But I did the most overrated, underrated teams in the college football playoff era. It's simply based on the preseason ranking and how you finish the season. If you improved your ranking, you're underrated. If you did not meet your ranking, you're overrated. And so, of course, that comes out and, Auburn's number 1, even though they haven't been ranked in 6 years. LSU, though, they're closing fast. If Lane Foster's this year, they will be the new number 1. And USC's number 3. And then underrated, it's teams that basically overachieved. BYU is number 1. Indiana, based strictly on 2 years with Curt Cignetti, vaults all the way up to number 2. But again, you've got like Ohio State as the 23rd or 24th most overrated team. Obviously, they're not technically overrated. But if you're ranked in the top 4 every year and you don't finish in the top 4, then technically you are overrated. So somebody, couldn't believe Clemson was up there. Well, we've won a national title. Well, that's great. You overachieved that year. And then since you won a national title, you have not met up to your expectations. By the way, last year you were 4th. You finished unranked. So that's not good when you're trying not to be a most overrated team. So, Smokey, most of that is just stuff that swirls around in my head, or I think about this is a unique circumstance and wow, I want to look this up. And, the old saying, you break a lot of eggs and don't really make a lot. So there's a lot of stuff that I've gone down a rabbit hole and looked up and got to the end and like, you know what? That's really not that interesting. I'm not going to it really doesn't prove a point either way. Like I had one, I thought I was on, hey, how about first year starting quarterbacks at their school to win the national championship? This has to be lopsided one way or the other. I think it's literally the last 22 years, 11 quarterbacks that won the national championship were returning starting quarterbacks at that school, and 11 were first year starters at that school. So flip a coin. That doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, Brett, you have a lot of good notes, and there was various ones flying around with that top 25, but the one about Ohio State and Oregon being the first time since 87, two teams from the same conference were 1-2 in the preseason poll. I just couldn't believe that because I just had to – I'm sure I had seen LSU, Alabama, or some version of some SEC teams that 1-2 in the preseason rankings, but I guess not. I found that to be super unique, and I wouldn't have ever thought about that.
Dude, I'm going to go old school on you. Name the last time the same conference had number 1, number 2, number 3 in the final AP poll.
I do know this.
Only happened once.
In 1970, was it one with Nebraska, Oklahoma,
1971.
Colorado? Yeah.
You win the showcase.
No,
David.
no. I just happen to know that. I brought that up before when they had the Big 8, and man, they were so good back in the day during the Big 8.
So, Brett, before we let you go, good article on Bryles and a lot of other stuff you've done this offseason. I know it's probably recency bias now that we're a couple of weeks away to go like, oh man, it's gonna be the greatest season ever. But am I crazy in thinking that this has been one of the most interesting off seasons from so many different perspectives, and just the complete unknown about like there's no Alabama just dominating everything anymore. It just feels like such an incredibly interesting year we're in store for, based on the parity, based on Indiana winning a title, based on all the head coaching changes. What do you think? I mean, recency bias, sure, but it does feel like we are in store for a pretty special year of college football.
Yeah, Craig. I think you're right, and I don't know if part of that is because of all the nonsense that's been going on with are we going to expand the playoffs, the Safe College Sports Act? You're right. Part of me thinks this is going to be one of the craziest years, but also I sit there and I look at the top 7 in the rankings and think, man, there's no way one of those guys don't win it all. But Indiana proved us wrong last year, so. I do think also why we think this, and I've told people this, and look, we just, David just talked about all these great trends and all this stuff I put out, and then I'm going to say this. I don't think anything before the last 3 years is really relevant anymore. And I say that because the portal, NIL, the SEC schools can no longer hoard recruits and just basically roll them out every year and keep kids from going to other places. So when you've got the best players, you're going to be good for a really long time. Now there's so much freedom of movement that I think you're going to have an Indiana pop. You're going to have other teams pop up. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be crazy. I think that's why the Big Ten has had success the last 3 years, and I think it's going to continue. Not the Big Ten necessarily, but I think just the unpredictable happening, because you can change a roster overnight. Heck, I'm waiting for the first person to enter the portal at halftime and suit up for a different team at halftime. Yeah, we're almost there. And so I think it's going to be crazy this year.
Yeah, you could have a judge in the stands, and you have an attorney that goes up to him and say, hey, we got a waiver. Would you mind making a ruling on this? And the next thing you know, a guy that's just hanging out ends up playing middle linebacker for maybe
returns the second half kickoff for a touchdown.
Brett, thank you, buddy. I know we are on the verge. Thanks for giving me the heads up on the story. You were going to write back when you did with Art. And like you said, you and I've talked about this. It's not going to probably change anybody's mind about how they feel, but there are some nuggets and some notes in this story that I did not know about. So I appreciate the way that you covered it. And was this the longest article that you have ever written? And how long does it take once you sit down with him to get this thing out in print?
No, without question, it's the most in-depth, longest article I've ever done. Obviously, being at a newspaper, you don't have the ability to write something this long. Mm-hmm. So being it On3 and being on the web, And again, I thought at times it was too long, and I'm like, oh, I got to cut this. I left this out. I got to trim it. Well, wait, this person just called me back. You just basically kind of, you kind of have it all, and I never really knew what exactly I was going to write. To tell you, when I initially was going to do this story, because of, how toxic art is to some people, I was only going to do a Q&A. I thought, you know what, I'm only going to do a Q&A because people are not going to, when I describe something or write something, they're not going to buy it. They're just going to want to hear a Q&A. And then I thought, you know what, that could be really boring. And then I talked to some people I respect in the business. They're like, dude, no, you're going to New Mexico. You need to tell the story. You need to describe it. And so I ended up doing that. But, it's unfortunate that it's, what happened at Baylor. And with that being said, it was without doubt the most, which will sound weird. I'm not minimizing what happened at Baylor, but it was probably one of the most enjoyable articles I ever had the chance to write. And it started, and I started it, and I changed things up, and I'd think, oh, this is the way to go with it. That's the way to go with it. And I'm out there at practice, and Art's, they're running up and down the field. They've been practicing for 30 minutes. And they line up to kick a field goal, and the kid misses it. And Art, he's got a one-liner for everything. And he says, well, that's all right. That's why God made tomorrows, because tomorrow you'll have another chance. And I said, oh, my God, that's my lead.
Yeah.
That is my freaking lead. Everyone except Art Briles. And then it just, I rewrote it 100 times until I finally got where I thought, okay, this, in my opinion, it covered what I thought was, significant. It covered some angles, like you said, that people didn't know. Again, if people didn't like it, I'll write other things. Hopefully you'll like those things. But I just tried to tell the best story I could related to Art Briles and what's happened the past 10 years. And I never had any intention of revisiting, reinvestigating the stuff that went on at Baylor. So if that's what you wanted, I'm sorry I let you down.
Brett, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Always appreciate your work. And on with us for a long time today, Brett McMurphy on 3 with the story. If you haven't read it, I think you should if you're interested or not. If you're not, then don't. But there were some nuggets, like I said. One of the things that sometimes gets lost is that when they have the Pepper Hamilton report, and then he's gone, and then a lot of others eventually gone, is that what Baylor eventually gives him a check for $15 million, and the Board of Regents or whatever they call, end up basically clearing him of everything. And even when Kevin Feit is now the AD of Eastern New Mexico, he himself said that when you look at the NCAA's investigation, different than Pepper Hamilton, it is something where they said they cleared him. But there are some coaches that have done some pretty bad things. I'm not ever going to defend anything about what and those who were hurt during this, but there are some coaches that seem like no matter what, they're not they're not the poster child, the way that Art Briles has been with that story. And for some, he should be. When we come back, Trey Wallace, you want to say anything else?
Yeah, it's an incredibly frustrating story because I was around to watch it all unfold and was early on the beat covering Baylor, and there was never a more fun time period than when they were rolling along and starting to win big. And as somebody who all I wanted to do is cover college football, learned in like the span of 3-4 years the extremes of how high and low that can go, because on the one hand had the extreme fun of how successful they were and how fun they were, and they had the coolest uniforms, arguably cooler than Oregon's. They were the Oregon of the South. They had the coolest offense in the country. They had a lot of cool athletes and players that were starting to find their way into the top of the draft, and they were poised to be like what Texas Tech is trying to be now, but in the old way of doing things like pre-NIL. They were very similar in being that disruptor, and I know a lot of people did not like that, and a lot of people were praying for their downfall in so many ways. And I also know at the same time that clearly they didn't run everything as tightly as they should have. Had they done that, I think they would have weeded out any possibility to be made a scapegoat, if you feel like that was what happened. Or maybe they just made poor decisions in the moment that that ended up compounding and being much bigger than maybe you realized in the moment. It's a frustrating story because like when you actually look at every detail of it, like there's no doubt that there were some young girls that were harmed. And that's the part that you got to always go back to. And it's just a matter of, was that because of Art Briles and like the way you heard it portrayed from the very beginning, and especially hammered home from media outlets who you look back on and they had every reason to want this to be the case, that made it as though there were people being like chased down on campus in the middle of the school day and just raped in the town square. Like that's how it was portrayed. Like it became so extreme so quickly, and it was being fed by rival reporters. It was being fed on a daily basis by ESPN, who was like camped out on campus. It was being self-fed by Baylor's complete inaction, and they're like frozen in fear about what to do and how to react to it, and then always reacting too late or reacting the wrong way than they should have reacted. And then that just compounded. And it's like, I can't even describe how much the heat was turned up for like those several months with all of the microscope on that story. And it's just really frustrating because like, I'm not sitting here going like, oh, well, nothing happened and everything was fine. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that anybody's like completely innocent, that Art Briles couldn't have done anything differently. But I've just never thought that he was like this devil that was like, go and rape these co-eds players and we'll cover like that. But that's how it was portrayed. That's how it was made out to be. And it was like reinforced by professional reporters. And it just got so big and so hot, and it just became like so combustible that the only end result was one where he had to go. But it's just a frustrating story in hindsight, because I don't feel like it was always covered fairly. I don't feel like everything that was portrayed is exactly what happened. I don't feel like every part of the story has really been told. And I don't think every person who came out and said something was actually telling the truth. And it's just a thing for me when I look back on. I kind of do have some PTSD, because I wish I would have been a more seasoned reporter that knew how to handle something like that. But I had no idea. Like I'm tweeting notes from practice, man. I'm not ready to report on a sexual assault scandal. Like I didn't know the first freaking clue about how to do that. And unfortunately, I feel like if I did, then maybe stuff could have gotten out there, and it would have been out there that Sam Ukuwachu was suspended for this reason. Or like maybe Phil Bennett answers a question to practice and says what it's for. And hindsight's 2020. Instead of that being then used as like, oh, well, they were trying to hide it. It's like
I'll say this, and Trey Wallace is coming up next, and Trey probably has his own thoughts on it. But I asked about Sam Ukuwachu's availability day after day after day after day throughout the spring, does not practicing, and then I should have asked maybe a different question.
Right, that's the part. And I've said this before, and of course, then you got to be careful about if you're a coach and a player's in trouble for whatever reason, could have nudged me in one direction or the other, and by that time it was too late. I think everybody
I'll say this. I'm sorry, Craig. That he wasn't practicing. Maybe it's an injury. Maybe it's a drug test. Maybe it's his transcript. Maybe he's a bad dude. I never once, and I admit this, never once ever thought that it might be something criminal. And that's probably something that I have to always remember, that if somebody misses practice now, I'm going to find out why it is. And I could have, I didn't, it's not that I could have done anything differently. I should have asked a different question a few times during that time.
Yeah, I just have like hindsight of like, God, I wish I would have followed up with this, and maybe there would have been an answer that then totally changes how all this goes. But I also think that I'm not the center of the universe, and I did what I thought was best at the time, as far as just covering the team and all of that stuff. But yeah, having no idea of what was on the other side of this guy who's just missing practice, and he's dealing with the thing or whatever. And now, yeah, I wish I would have been like, well, what's he dealing with? Like specifically. And I just wasn't seasoned enough at that point. Mm-hmm. And I certainly wasn't thinking anything super nefarious either. I wasn't thinking of like, oh, well, what are they trying to hide? I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that'll work itself out. And it's just a very frustrating thing, because a lot could have been done differently. And I'm with Brett on, he's not sitting here going like, everybody cheer for this man. he's just telling a story, and it is just very strange on how this is like the one guy I feel like that for whatever reason, and I think it's the subject matter, but I also think there's something deeper to it where you can't even talk about it. And if you even talk about it and you're not saying he should burn in hell, there's an army of people that want to say, oh, well, you're sticking up and you're a rape enabler. And it's like, bullshit. That's not the case at all. I'm talking about something that happened, but there was especially a push from Austin, a certain group of people that kind of painted this narrative to where anything other than you should burn the entire thing down was you were enabling people or you were trying to justify it. And it's like, that's total garbage crap. And it's a very frustrating thing to look back on for a lot of different reasons, mostly that people were hurt. And that's the first and foremost thing. And it's one of those things where forever since then, I never quite trust anything that I read.
No,
or trust what's said just at face value, because there is a big part of Baylor that did their best to just push it to the side as quickly as they could.
There's some. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I don't regret this, because in the fall after he had been fired and the coaching staff was still there, and of course they had a 6-0 start, and then all hell broke loose the week end of the game against Texas, which is interesting timing, is that I had someone who was a victim that was going to join me on a radio show and discuss her story, and was going and had told me that she had gone to Art Briles and that he did whatever he was supposed to do. And she was more upset about others in different positions. And then after I set up a time for her, Baylor was playing like Kansas that day at the Farrell Center. And about 15, 20 minutes prior to the interview, I called the number, and a parent answered and said, "Why are you trying to do this to my daughter?" And the interview never happened. I get kind of goosebumps just because of reflecting back on that time. I doesn't mean that it would have changed anything, but had she, of course, been able to say something about whether she had any interaction or an attorney or a parent with any of the coaches at Baylor, that could have been interesting in the end.
Yeah,
so I hate that did not happen, but I get why they didn't want to talk.
And I believe that person went on to settle for a certain whatever agreement that was made there. But it wasn't that there was just one person. That was the problem. And as you said, it was bigger than football. But even if, like, to my point of what I was just saying, you try to say that, people, what? You're making excuses. Like, no, it was definitely institutional. I will go to my grave saying that. Anybody tries to tell me otherwise, you're the one that's wrong, and you're weirdly trying to make it something that it wasn't for whatever angle. And so there's just things like that where the pushback became like, you can't even try to tell the full truth because you're sticking. It's like, no, it's weird how all of that transpired. It's very frustrating to look back on. And I don't feel like the full story was ever told, and not that it would exonerate him or anything like that. I'm not talking about he's a scapegoat or anything, but just the whole thing will always be just a really tough thing to look back on, to wonder, like, man, I wish I asked one more question. You know what I mean? I wish I would have been better seasoned to handle something like that. Not that it would have probably changed anything in the long run, but maybe could have just been better about the reporting or something. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah. So here's one deep. We're gonna get this Trey Wallace in the portal. Okay. One deep. This is when it's good that we have the chat room because we can answer questions. So it's Texas's fault. What happened to Baylor?
No, dude.
No, we never said that. Thank you for putting that comment in there so we could actually answer it. How in the world could you even come up with that type of insinuation? We never said that. We talked about the story and how it was covered. Nothing that happened had anything to do with it being from Texas's side of it. No, not at all.
No, I think some of the very hot coverage, especially early on, and some of the things of the portrayal of how people were actually trying to handle it very much came from certain people in Austin. The scandal, all of what happened there, not their fault, had nothing to do with them. I don't know if they hired Art Briles 2 years earlier. The scandal, does it still happen? I don't know. I don't know how that would have gone. I don't know how all of that would have unfolded, but that'll always be something I wonder. does Baylor just get popped in a major way and it's more of the school's the focus because he's not there to be the focus? You know what I mean? Like, is that their final straw as an institution in light of what had happened previously there or what? But no, I would just say that some of the trying to paint any explanation that wasn't he's the devil and needs to burn, you were automatically thrown out like you were some witch. And I just felt that was very unfair to the actual story. And I did feel like that very much the enabling very much came from certain people that cover Texas. Yes, absolutely. But it's not their fault. I do feel like that did not do the truth ultimately justice. Maybe we'd have ended up in the same place. That's all I was saying.
Trey Wallace, Fox senior college football writer. Trey, sorry we're running late, but obviously a hot topic on the story out in eastern New Mexico with Art Browse and his comeback. And I'm sure you have been around enough to have seen. I know that Clay did an article, sat down with Browse one-on-one and tried to do the story himself. It was a really interesting time 10 years ago, and now Browse is trying to get back. He is back in college coaching.
It's an interesting subject for me. It started kind of when I was getting rolling in the bit. I don't know how to explain it. He's always going to carry weight with his name and not in the best form or fashion. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is tied to obviously what happened to Baylor. But also, I think how Baylor handled it, I think is another way. Like, because I could talk about 14 different people at Baylor and how I thought that investigation went, and the NCAA and the Title IX office and whatnot. But I will say our Browse has also done himself no favors. Mm-hmm. When it comes to when he was trying to get back in the game, like after this all happened, okay? And then the certain positions he was trying to take, and then trying to pop back into the high school realm in Texas, but kind of doing it in a sneakily form. Not really even a word, but he was trying to sneak around and get a job. Like, he hasn't helped himself. And so I have no sympathy for Browse. Just the same way I don't have sympathy for folks at Baylor who were, I'm going to use my words carefully here, allegedly privy to the situations that were ongoing. And so I kind of not walk a straight line or anything like that when it comes to this, but also I look at it from a number of different sides, and especially the athletes that were involved and that were affected.
One note, I'm going to bring this up, is that I remember after he had been fired, there was an interview he did with Tom Rinaldi on game day in September.
Terrible look.
And I guess his agent, I think at the time might have been Jimmy Sexton, who's the agent of the Stars.
Right.
And he did a one-on-one. Rinaldi does the tearjerker type of stuff, and the interview it was just bad. And I don't know if he wasn't coached up enough. And again, some guys you can say things, you can get. And I remember, was it Sam Ponder? After the interview came on, she was on the set, and that right there ended any chance that anytime soon that he was going to be hired by anybody.
Well, it's also pick your timing when you're doing things, like, and also the platform that you're on while you're doing that. Like, it was just bad. Like, and I love Tom Rinaldi. I don't want to hear, I'm just being honest here. I don't want to hear Tom Rinaldi doing a story on Art Browse. Like, I'm sorry. Like, like any other thing in the world, any other thing I'm good with. And so I just, again, it's always going to follow him, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. And I think at the end of the day, people can make their own assumptions. They can read the facts that happen, read the reports, and come up with their own thing. But my biggest thing is, don't throw out don't throw out accusations if you haven't read anything. If you're just going off word of mouth, that's on you for not knowing the full story. And there was a lot of stuff that Baylor could have handled in a much better fashion. And again, I'm not saying anything towards Art Briles. Art Briles is a different story. I'm talking about Baylor in general.
Right.
So it could have gone 18 different ways. And how it's ended up is, karma is a leap word, as you know. And I think Baylor is paid for that ramification since then.
Trey, what was your kind of welcome to college football reporting where it wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to be talking about fun stuff like recruiting and winning and all this? Like, what was your like, oh, there's other stuff to this too? Because now look at you. Now you're so far into the courts and everything. Like, I can't imagine that's where your brain thought you would always be or anything. But what was kind of your like, oh, there's more complexity to this than just what happens on Saturdays?
When I was in college at the University of South Alabama and working for John Pelfrey and athletic director Joe Gottfried and whatnot, working behind the scenes to get the football program off the ground, I did not expect one day to be a White House correspondent, a political reporter, a courtroom reporter, a litigation expert. Guys, I can't tell you how many law books I've read. And there's a lot of stuff I don't understand. I rely on the people that know. But also, I don't know, 17 years ago, I mean, I started doing this in high school. Yeah. I wouldn't expected to be talking with NIL attorneys. What the hell was NIL back in the day? What is that? Like, and talking to them at 11:30 at night about cases that were ongoing around the country. So, I think, I've said this for the last 5.5 years. I said, my world, and I think, Brett McMurphy was on, and I love Brett. Brett's a really good guy. I think he would say the same thing along with a lot of my colleagues. Our world changed 5.5 years ago when Nick Saban made comments about Jimbo Fisher and the Texas A&M roster. It really wasn't like that. It was the inception of NIL. That's when everything changed. And we didn't know then what we know now. We knew it was going to be crazy. Don't get me wrong. Like, you essentially stopped having bagmen drop the money off at the back door quietly to allowing the bagmen to drop the money off at the front door in front of everybody. And you can wave at them while you're doing it. That's what you're at in college athletics now. And I think at the same time, you're seeing all these lawsuits that are being filed. And, there was another one. There was a TRO just granted in Louisiana an hour and a half ago that, if I have my numbers right, there are 14 former football players that were granted, and there were other athletes as well, but football players that were granted a TRO that allows them to go back to college first. Second, use the transfer portal. Third, there's a number of those players that are on NFL rosters right now. And if they get out of their NFL contract by September 1st, they could then go play college football. Like, think about that for a minute. Like, we were bitching and moaning, the NCAA was, about Arian Carter, the Tennessee linebacker, who declared for the draft. And by the way, I know this is not the NCAA's fault. These courts are granting the injunctions, which I don't have a problem with, but they better make the same argument, the NCAA, outside of the court system. Okay. So the NCAA better make the same argument. Okay. You're going to be, if you come back to college, you have to be suspended for 2 games, or 3 games. You got to get the same treatment, because Arian Carter in Tennessee, if they really, really wanted to, and this is not out of the question yet, guys, he's suspended for the first 2 games of the season. Okay. I'm going to sit out the Furman game, but that Georgia Tech, that primetime game on Saturday night from Atlanta on ESPN. Yeah. I'm going to file an injunction on Monday. I'm going to get a court to grant it. And then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to play on that Saturday night. But then Monday, I'll just drop the case. Like, I'm just telling you. And if I was Tennessee and Arian Carter, that's exactly what I would do. Because I'm seeing now current NFL players that are being granted injunctions and TROs that are being allowed to play and use the transfer portal. Like, this is all a mess. So, guys, to go full circle on your question, absolutely not. Like, and I'm going to write gamers. I'm going to write profiles on players. I'm going to break stories on investigations that are going on around college campuses. In no form or fashion did I think that I would be writing about players being legally paid to play college athletics when it was. I mean, guys, I grew up in Lower Alabama. Okay, the stories that I've been told and heard about what went on at Auburn and Alabama when it comes to the bag men. And by the way, this happened everywhere. I'm just saying where I grew up. Like, it's fascinating. And so you look at it now, man, everything has changed. And until I'm not going to say federal legislation, okay, because I don't think that's going to happen. It's just my personal opinion. But until they figure out a way to reel this bad boy in, we're going to continue covering it. We're going to continue writing it. And I'll end this question with this. I know college football fans are sick and tired of reading and hearing about it. I promise you, us as reporters, we can tell by the number of people that are looking at a story. We can tell you're agitated and frustrated and you just don't care anymore. You just want to play football. You want to see your team play football. You want to cheer them on. You want to enjoy your weekends. The problem is this is college athletics now. And we're writing about history. You know, in 20 years, I'll look back and be like, man, look what I covered back then. So long answer for your question, but hell no, I did not expect working for John Pelfrey and then all of a sudden be covering this craziness 17 years later.
Yeah, no, it was funny timing this past weekend. I was just sitting around and Pony Excess came on, and I hadn't seen it in a few years. And so I'm just sitting there rewatching that and just thinking of like, look how far we've come since the Pony Excess days. And
that's the other thing too. Yeah, like the Pony Express. Like, by the way, great documentary on ESPN.
Oh yeah, it was good. Yeah,
but it's like, but then don't forget Marcus Dupree at Southern Miss in Oklahoma and the craziness that happened there. Like, it's like this is really happening. Like, and when you think about that for a minute, how guys 5 years ago, I was breaking a story on Jeremy Pruitt. Paying athletes and having a hotel scheme, essentially, with a local Knoxville hotel to pay for unofficial visits, paying for kids' parents to go get manicures and pedicures, paying a player's parent a couple grand in a Chick-fil-A bag. It wasn't a McDonald's bag. It was a Chick-fil-A bag in the parking lot. And then look at where we are now. Like, and if I'm Jeremy Pruitt, I'm pissed. I'm pissed I got a 10-year show cause. But in something that was legal 2 years later. Think about that.
Yeah, and you're right too on the point, because we have some of that too, where people just get a little bit tired of the legal. But I always say to them, it's like, hey, this is not what I signed up for either. Some of it I actually have found to be like sort of interesting that maybe I didn't think would be, but it is. And ultimately, I just say, like, we got to talk about it because it's going to matter. It's going to matter on like if eligibility is a thing in a few years. It's going to matter on like how this whole system even operates. And so that's why you have to cover it, because it is going to be a part of whatever college football looks like in not just the upcoming years, but moving forward for years to come. Like, is this settled or is this just going to completely burn itself down? Yeah.
I mean, guys, think about it. There are players right now that participated in NFL camp that are now being granted the ability to come back and play college football. Like, that's what so when people get agitated, I get it. I understand it. I don't take it personal, but we have to talk about it. Mm-hmm. We have to report on it. We have to talk to the attorneys. We have to talk to the players. We have to talk to the schools. I'm texting back and forth with the NFL folks right now about, okay, well, they want out of the contract. How does that part work? So like, folks are agitated and they're tired, but I promise you, you'll look back in 10 years and be like, holy crap, that went on, that happened. And in 10 years, I pray that I'm still doing this, but I also pray that we've moved past this point and we've figured out a way for the players to have a seat at the table and be able to negotiate their own contracts and whatnot as a group, have collective bargaining, because this isn't working anymore. And We're sitting on pins and needles, guys. Like I'm on pins and needles right now, waiting for a 10th Circuit Court in Colorado to either grant the NCAA an administrative stay, which essentially says the injunction that was granted at the federal level that gives everybody in the 2022 class a blanket waiver. It would say, you know what? That one's going to be paused. We'll figure it out as the appeal process goes. Or the 10th Circuit can come out and say, sorry, NCAA, we don't agree with you on this. You can go through with your appeal, but the blanket waiver stays. And if that happens, guys, I am not trying to make this into something that it's not, but I'm just telling you, I've said it before on here. I had a lawyer tell me, I asked the lawyer, I said, how many athletes are technically eligible right now because of this blanket waiver without the appeal? And they said over 20,000.
Yep.
20,000 athletes that are eligible right now as we're talking on this show. The problem is there's no roster spots. And we're talking about all sports, guys, from water polo to track and field to football, you name it. So that's where the number comes from. But that part is fascinating to me. And it's crazy to think that we're in this spot. And in reality, we're in this spot because the NCAA decided to exclude them from the new guidelines.
Players who have signed NFL contracts, including former LSU star Jack Pyburn, Ole Miss defensive lineman Xavier Harris, Daquan Wright, former star at South Carolina, are all a part of that group. And they are wearing a uniform that's an NFL team right now.
Think about that. That's how bonkers it is. Like they're at practice right now, guys. They're in a preseason game last week. Like one of these players had 3 tackles in a preseason NFL game. And so, if they don't figure this out, and the only way, look, here's the other thing too. The lawyers and the players are going to continue filing lawsuits in state courts. They're going to get eligible. There's a trend here. The way that the NCAA has done it, I give them credit. They've filed these motions for a stay, and they've taken it to the next court, and the next court's like, you know what? We don't agree with that district court judge. We're going to grant you a stay. That part's null and void. Like, so this is going to be a back and forth thing, and I feel like that it's not going away anytime soon because the NCAA decided last year that they were not going to implement this new guideline, let's just say in January before the football portal closed. They waited until June. And so while I have a little bit of sympathy for the NCAA lawyers flying all over the country, and there's only like 4 of them, guys, they're having to outsource right now. Like the case that happened in Kentucky yesterday, those were outsourced lawyers from like a local Louisville law firm. They don't have enough for these guys. There's not enough Taylor Askews, who's one of the NCAA attorneys, to fly around all the country to fight this. So, and while I have a little bit of sympathy for that part, for their family life, I don't have it because of the rules that were established.
So, Trey, would it be fair to assume that at some point this season we're more than likely to see some guys getting yanked off of a roster that had otherwise been playing, or some guys added onto a roster that otherwise haven't been playing, like going in both directions? Is that possible as something we could see? I know the yanking off a roster late in the year is looked at like probably a pretty strong possibility, but in light of this news here, we're going to see a scramble for guys to be just jumping on rosters willy-nilly. Like, how do you think that works?
That part's going to get interesting. I talked to a couple people about that at the NCAA level and a couple of attorneys, because I'm trying to put this the right way. You still got to work within the academic calendar of a school. So when you see Ryan Downton, who's a very, very good attorney, who also helps run Vanderbilt's NIL entity, Tsunami Doors, which I'm kind of plugging that because I have a story coming out tomorrow on Jared Curtis. So it's good. It's a fun one. But what I'm saying is, when he says, hey, look, September 1st is the deadline, that's essentially the academic deadline. You got to be enrolled. You got to be working towards your degree. Like Lenore Sellers came out yesterday and mentioned that he doesn't have any classes this semester. He's only interning at a local golf course to finish his degree. And he earned that, by the way, because working his ass off, excuse my language, to be able to get that degree. But what I think you're going to see, I don't know if yanking them off a team is going to happen. I think we're going to get to a conclusion with the 10th Circuit in the Colorado case where we'll know before the season starts. And then some of these schools have mini semesters, okay, that start in like November, December. I think you will see that more in basketball than you will in football, because I do think in some form or fashion with this case in Colorado, it's going to lay the groundwork of who's legal, who's not legal to play. And I think at the same time, even though there's going to be lawsuits filed in state courts, that's only going to be a handful at a time compared to a blanket waiver for the entire 2022 class. That's the difference.
We have Taylor McCart's about to join us, CBS Sports.
Yeah.
You have one more?
Yeah, I wanted to end on a fun note. We were originally planning on this being a 5-minute interview, but we didn't want to infringe on Jaden Daniels' trademarks here. But Trey, on a lighter note, I mean, have you seen a goofier way to react and throw yourself into disarray than, or just a dumber thing to do than how Jaden Daniels' team handled events of the last few days?
Here's the thing, man. I really hope Jaden Daniels didn't have a lot of influence on that decision. Like, right. I personally, I've been told that it was the family that had a lot more influence on that than actually Jaden Daniels. Like, Jaden Daniels if we're just being honest, I don't think Jaden Daniels wants to be dealing with all this bad press while he's preparing for the NFL season with the Commanders. Like, why? But at the same time, he did have to agree to it. So I don't think he understood, and I don't mean this in a mean way whatsoever, I don't think he understood how big this was going to blow up. And his family attorney did them no favors by releasing this to ESPN. And I'm not talking about like releasing it to an outlet. I'm talking about you did it at 11:45 at night. The problem is LSU already knew it was coming. LSU had the player who's currently wearing number 5, DJ Pickett, ready to go the next day for a media session. What people don't know is internally this had been going on for a while. So they were prepared and had DJ Pickett prepared from a media standpoint to answer questions. And as you've seen, LSU is dragging Jaden Daniels right now all over social media because it seems like every other post is about DJ Pickett and what he's doing in practice wearing the number 5 jersey. So I think it was a dumb decision. I do understand Jaden Daniels wanting to cash in on his name, image, and likeness. But like somebody told me the other day, a source said this to me. They said, is it really worth $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in jersey sales? These colleges aren't making a lot of money off jersey sales. Yeah. The players sure aren't, especially the ones that are gone. And I think I'll end it with this. I think he screwed up. The family did by trying to compare him to Joe Burrow. I'm sorry. That argument does not hold up whatsoever. Yep. Joe Burrow will be remembered forever. I'm not saying Jaden Daniels won't. He won a Heisman Trophy. He did great things at LSU. But I think we can all agree there was something different about Joe Burrow in a national championship and how he did things and whatnot compared to Daniels. So, it was a dumb thing for them to do. I hope they're comfortable with it, and I hope they know that they put Jaden Daniels in a horrible spot.
Next week, we now have Trey Weekly on Wednesdays, and we will try to discuss football scores.
Oh, we're talking football next week, buddy.
Yeah, we are.
We got Belichick that's going to get drubbed in Ireland, and we got plenty to talk about, I promise, my man.
We appreciate you so much, Trey. Thank you. Trey
Thank you, guys.
Wallace, Fox senior college football writer with us on 365 Sports, and Taylor McCarg of CBS Sports, who Taylor, I apologize to you in a text. We had you scheduled earlier, and now we're up against the clock. I know you've got to run. Thank you very much for your time. Let's let you plug the high school games that you're going to be doing, television games coming up here very quickly.
Yeah, I've never done one. It's my first year with ESPN doing one of these high school showcases, and Battleground Academy out of it's right outside of Nashville. They're going on the road to St. Michael's. St. Michael's in just outside of Mobile, Alabama. It's actually the school that Phillip Rivers is now coaching at. His son Gunner is the quarterback there. So, look, again, I've never done one of these. I'm with a team that I'm familiar with just in terms of the broadcast team, but I'm really excited about it. I remember watching these when I was a high school player, thinking, man, how cool would that be to be on ESPN or be on TV for a high school game? Now they're so popular. I think ESPN has 7 or 8 of them kind of back to back all weekend. And then Luke Bryan's son, Bo, is the quarterback for Battleground on the other side. So there's a lot of fun storylines in it, a lot of big time recruits in it as well. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was a time when verboten, you could not put high school on television. That changed several years ago, unless it was like not a Friday game. But now it's like anything else has changed.
Right.
Taylor, there are so many players who transferred who are big-time names. Hoover, Levitt, Craig, Lagway, Mestamaker, Beck, Mensa, Byron Brown, Boley, Ray. There's a lot of them. Which is the one that maybe is not getting enough attention to what impact they might have on their team?
I think you said him, but Jaden Craig, to me, coming from Harvard to TCU, I think that's one that does go under the radar some. Sam Levitt, to me, is LSU from how disappointing they've been the last couple seasons. It's possible LSU not only is this a potential playoff team, but that's a caliber talent where they could make a run right in the playoffs. And so, what Sam Levitt brings to them from a mobility standpoint, obviously, hope that he's back to his ability to run around like he was before his injury. Drew Mestamaker, I'll go back to the Big 12. That's another one where, Oklahoma State, I think people forget. I forgot before we did Big 12 Media Days. They have not won. Oklahoma State has not won a Big 12 game in conference play for the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
And for Eric Morris to get Mestamaker to come with him, I know we saw you guys at Media Days. When that stat got thrown out, it kind of baffling because you just forget how bad they've been the last couple of seasons. But under the radar, I would go back to Jaden Craig and TCU because I think there's a case to be made, that you may have upgraded there. Josh Hoover's turnovers, and I know they couldn't run the ball and there was so much on his plate where it felt like he had to be Superman. But it's possible that TCU actually upgraded at quarterback, but I would say some combination of those 3.
Taylor, I saw your comment on the AP Top 25. Everybody's got their thoughts on its value and who's underrated, overrated. But you said that your guess on who ends up unranked from the top 10 is Texas A&M. And I was just curious for your explanation because I've seen that sentiment a couple of other places of just not being super high on A&M, just running it all back. So what's your reasoning for why you think that's most likely?
Yeah, I think more than anything else, a lot of it just has to do with schedule. I think a year ago, they were benefited tremendously from playing basically the bottom half of the league week in and week out in conference play. And this year's the opposite. There are 5 losable games on that schedule, and 4 out of those 5, in all likelihood, they're underdogs. So by the end of the season, if you make me pick one out of those 10, that's who I'm going with. I also think if you just look at quarterbacks out of that group, I think Marcel Reed's probably the weakest out of that group. And that's not to say he's a bad player, but if you talk about making the playoffs and ending up as a top 10 team, I just don't think he's that caliber.
The same teams are pretty much in it. So I've asked this question before, and I've had people ask me this question. Is Indiana the next Indiana? Is that going to be them again this year?
I certainly don't think they're going anywhere. I mean, the way that they're built on up front is offensive and defensive line play is phenomenal. Is there going to be somebody that takes that meteoric rise like they did? I don't think so. I think Texas Tech is the closest thing to that, right? From what they accomplished a year ago and how they built that program. They should be better. I think they will be better overall, Tech will, than they were a year ago. I think they'll be better on offense, certainly. And assuming Will Hammond is back to even close to full health from before he got injured, to me, I think Texas Tech, if you made me pick one team that could have a run like that, I would say it's Tech. But yeah, Indiana, I think they're going to be right there again this season. I would have them at worst 10-2 in the regular season. And a 10-2 Indiana, even if they miss the Big Ten, I think they're in the Big Ten championship, I should say. I think they're still in the college football playoff.
10-2 Indiana the year after they won the national title and 2 years removed from the play. I'm just pinching myself to make sure I'm still awake here, Taylor. It's still kind of weird sometimes.
You know
to
what?
Think about.
I Googled this the other day because I was in an argument with a friend of mine about my Rice Owls. This is terrible about Rice, but I'm going to say it anyway. I looked up the worst teams in the last 100 years. If you've been playing football for 100 years, what's the lowest win percentage? I thought it would be Rice. It was Indiana ahead of Rice. So it's amazing what they've done.
Yeah.
I mean, they were literally the worst team in football for 100 years. And to what they are now is unbelievable. I would love for something like that to happen for Rice.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, man. Hey, and thanks to Indiana, they weren't even worse than you thought. But, now it does give you some hope. All right, end on this, because I don't think I asked you about this the last time we were on together. But your thoughts on John Mateer this year at Oklahoma. Yeah. How much of last year was injury? How much of last year was step up in competition? What do you expect for him and the Sooners this season?
I think he'll be better. I think, and when I say better, I think decision-making, and I think OU will also, you would hope at least, and my expectation would be they have learned how to call plays around him. This is not a guy that's a pure pocket passer. He's not super patient in the pocket. As soon as, color of the opposite jersey flashes in front of him, he moves around, and that's just kind of his nature. That's difficult to do. I had them a couple times when he was at Washington State. He makes all these unbelievable plays happen off script. That's harder to do, obviously, in the SEC, and he got banged up for it. And I think you'll see that improve this year. I would expect just overall that you see more out of John Mateer than you did a year ago. I think he'll be better. What that looks like, I'm not calling him, saying he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He might be, but I think you'll see on both sides. I think he'll be more patient in the pocket. And I think from a play calling perspective, you will see them, call to his strengths a little bit, where a year ago, there was a lot that they still had to make happen off script. And for OU, I would expect that to improve this season.
I want to validate what you said earlier. I know you got to go. Would you punch your best friend in the face as hard as you could to guarantee your favorite college football team won a national championship? Your response was, I would do this to see Rice win the American Conference Championship. I love
100%. And my best buddy, Michael Pointer, who's also a quarterback at Rice when I was there, he commented in there and was like, I would take the punch. So we're all on board for this if it happens.
Hey, thank you, Taylor, for your patience with us today, and look forward to having you on. Thank you. Good luck with the high school
Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Taylor McCark from CBS Sports. So we have gone basically an hour and 41 minutes since we started. Some of the headlines, some of the stories, some of the videos and comments, and then Brett McMurphy to Trey Wallace to Taylor McCark. We're going to break here, Craig, by the way.
I sure hope so. I'm going to break.
Yeah, no, you.
Yeah.
We both probably need to do that. Rez, Michelangelo Flores, and Garrett Ross, what an incredible job you guys did to kind of weave all of that together. A lot of fantastic comments. Not everybody agrees with everybody in the chat room, but love the feedback we've gotten from you today and questions you've had for us as well. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock. 5 locations in Waco. It is the fastest growing pizza brand in America, Marco's Pizza. Perhaps there's one location near you, or maybe there's 5 or 6 like there is in this area in Central Texas. I enjoy their pizza. The best one for me is a thin crust. I delivered pizzas for the longest time, and I worked at Domino's. Bob Mock worked at a previous a franchise of pizza too when he was younger. It's how he fell in love with the business, but now it's Marco's. But I've always liked thin crust pizza. And they have at Marco's the pepperoni and Italian sausage Magnifico. But I have to have it on thin crust. And yeah, it can get a little bit I got to make sure I got hands on underneath the crust in the pie. It's fantastic. All of the pepperoni you'd want, all of the Italian sausage you want. It is incredible. And they have much more. They have sandwiches and chicken wings, and they have what you need with drinks, but and other particular type menu items that are Italian-based. Goodbye, Garrett. Good to see you, sir. Marco's Pizza, Bob Mock, 5 locations, Belmead, Robinson, China Spring, Woodway, and Hewitt. Marco's Pizza, Marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it.
Broker is your Lennox Premier dealer. Right now, qualified buyers can make no payments and get no interest financing for 12 months on a new Lennox home comfort system. Conditions apply. Call Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating Specialists for details and a free estimate.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive a 2026 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab with your choice. 0% for 36 months or 25% off MSRP. See why it was named to Car and Driver's Best 10 Trucks and SUVs list. And it comes with America's Best Truck Powertrain Warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles.
Come by, let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Serving Central Texas since 1889, TFNB Your Bank for Life takes pride in being more than a bank. TFNB, we remain committed to these principles. If you value them too, come join us. TFNB, your bank for life.
This 3 o'clock hour is brought to you by QC Kinetics. Feel better, move better, live better with regenerative medicine using your body's own healing abilities for natural pain relief. No surgery, no drugs, no downtime. With locations in Dallas and Houston at QCkinetics.com. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Smoak.
Well, welcome back to the show, and I don't have anything planned because I'm not supposed to be hosting right now, so hopefully Smokey makes his way back to the table here. I can paddle a little bit if I need to, but
I'm on my way.
He's on his way. We had a very long first hour and 40 minutes of the show, so we both needed to take our break, and we're straggling a little bit here, but we are here, so thank you for being with us.
Yeah, we almost need to get it. We almost had to have floats.
We almost should have just walked off. We should have just said, like, that's all you get today, and we just walk off the stage.
By the way, 2 of those guests we had, Trey Wallace with Fox is going to be an every week guest with us on Wednesdays. Taylor McCarg is going to move around based on his broadcast from CBS, a weekly guest. And Brett McMurphy doesn't do a lot of any type of spots. He does some segments, but to have him on twice in the last couple of weeks has been fantastic as well. Kim Coulter, Trey Wallace gets better every single time. It's a fantastic segment, and so glad I reached out to him a few months ago.
Yeah, I am too. He does a great job. He's a fun guy to talk to, and appreciate he doesn't hold back and just lets her rip. And I've really enjoyed those segments with him. Always like when we talk to Brett and Taylor as well. So yeah, that's 3 of our favorite guests, and glad to know that they're going to be, at least a couple of them, a part of regular weekly conversations during football season. And we'll have our Phil Bennett segment and whatever else.
Yep, next Monday.
So we'll be loaded up throughout the entire season. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button to be along for the ride. And just a lot of interesting stuff to unpack from the, Brett talking about even doing the story and on Art to Trey with the latest court dealings, even a little bit of Jaden Daniels, and then Taylor just on some regular football stuff. But we'll get to regular football with all those guys. Just a lot going on today. And, seeing the reaction to Brett's piece, I understand why he needed to make it very clear of like, hey, I'm just telling a story. Like, there's not every story is about somebody that everybody loves and is like upheld in a super positive light. Like you still are telling stories as a storyteller and a writer. And so he told the latest chapter of the Art Briles story. And, some like it, some don't. But I'm with him 100% on everybody's kind of already dug their heels in. But that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to talk about it if you've dug your heels in this way, or that you're absolutely 100% right if you're dug in that way. So I think anytime we try to restrict people from talking about something, then actually I think that's a weird route to go down. So glad to just get his thoughts and also some football stuff along the way as well.
I'm glad that we have the chat for a lot of reasons. I do monitor it and try to cross-check. And also then there have been some that we have had like a little bit of this and that, but I'm glad we have it, because if you have a question, then I can see it, and then you may have taken something wrong, or perhaps you have an issue. That's fine. That's what it's there for. And it can be interesting. It can be a daycare, and yet it also some great friends that we've gotten to know over the years since we started this.
I also think sometimes too, you like to play babysitter in the daycare more than you probably should.
Yeah.
People watch, and sometimes like the Texas fan a second ago. So what you're saying is like, no, that's not what we're saying, but I'm glad that you asked so that we can clarify and get across what was actually being said. And so, yeah, it's very valuable for that reason. And I don't appreciate anybody that comes rolling in life or in chat or whatever that tries to like position something immediately like, oh, so what you're doing is, it's like, no, man, like that's not what we're going to do on this show. It's not how we've ever been. And we're going to tell the story, the full story. And it was kind of therapeutic to talk to Brett about that particular one a little bit, because the thing that pisses me off is when people try to make it very simple when it was anything. God, it was the most complex thing, and still is. So I'm not trying to revisit it, but that's why like, it's good to be able to talk through it and not have somebody going rape enabler because I'm even asking a question about like how something was handled. And that's what I was talking about, was like, that was so out there and it was to the extreme.
I wish I'd have written notes during that time.
I kept some receipts for certain things that may come in handy later. If a particular person wants to try to pop off, I've got some receipts that I kept knowing one day they might come in handy.
Oh, you have someone like that too,
Not trying to revisit it, like I said, but just enjoy that conversation. No, not everybody's going to. But the Cody Campbell thing, him bringing that up, that was I mean, do you not remember there was I don't know how many there were, but there was a vocal group of Tech fans on Twitter, and we know that they exist. Excuse me. That, they wanted to hire Art Briles a few years ago. And Cody Campbell was a big part of the kind of the thought behind maybe being able to do that. And I had forgotten about that connection, but what a completely different world that would have been. So anyways, hope we get Brett on regularly throughout the season. Glad we're going to have Trey and obviously Taylor as well. Very much looking forward to talking some of the off the field stuff when it warrants it, but definitely excited about this upcoming season. That's why I'm glad we left off with that with Brett, was like, hey man, am I just getting too excited here because it's 2 weeks away, or is like this really setting up to be like a fascinating
getting
season?
Some of the comments on, for example, Fafita, the comments we got, the quotes from NFL scouts on Lagway and Kenny Dillingham trying to motivate his team and correct some mistakes. And hey, let's Rez, do you have the Eric Morris video from yesterday about having a problem sleeping? And part of that he took care of. Here's Eric Morris. I thought this was kind of fun.
I think just, when you get into it, my brain's going constantly. And so it's something I don't sleep very well. I've had a couple armadillo problems tearing up my lawn. And so finally, a couple days ago, I just popped up at 2:30 because I couldn't sleep and thinking about something. I thought it was a great opportunity to go outside. And luckily, I found him. This is my first experience with an armadillo. And he was crushing my yard, my flower beds, digging everything up. And but I got him about 2:30. Had to send a text message to my neighbors. I apologize for the gunshot. I am in the country, so it wasn't legal. But I did get rid of him just because I don't sleep right now. I think just naturally that clock's going off in your mind. Continues to race on the things we're doing good right now and what we need to continue to build on. And then, kind of some of the holes that we have and continue to build depth. I think that's going to be a kiss.
Yeah, there's Eric Morris. I thought he doesn't sleep. He's got a lot going on. He's got this he got the crunch of the season around the corner, new team. And then he also is having issues. And don't think that the flower bed, that's his wife who's saying, we need to do something about it. He gets up at 2:30, has a gun, and takes care of the problem. And he couldn't sleep anyway.
I like that he clarified that he was outside of city limits so he can avoid. There's a man who shot a gun in a place he might not have supposed to potentially before, like that he knows. Like, no, just be clear. Like, smart, very smart head coaching hire there by Oklahoma State for more reasons than one. But yeah, definitely give me the list of guys who have shot an armadillo at 2:30 in the morning. Eric Morris would be on that list for me pretty quickly, and that just. I don't know, that for some reason makes me kind of miss Mike Leach a little bit.
Yeah.
Like just
that
kind
was,
of random,
just,
that's college football. Like that story, you're not going to hear an NFL coach like telling a story like that all that often, if ever. Maybe some unique ones back in the day would have some tales, but that's the kind of goofiness amidst all of the seriousness or the stressful stuff that is part of the main reason we love college football. So, yeah, very excited about Eric Morris. Wish that Leach was around to be able to maybe have some interactions with those two and just you look at one of your guys from back in the day that's coming up the ranks now, and it's really unfortunate.
He would be so proud.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And remember now, Sawyer Robertson would have been his quarterback at Mississippi State.
Yeah, he would have been. I mean, how much does that change for him or for Baylor? I don't know that it changes really much of anything. Like maybe they're a game or two difference last year. I don't know. How much does it change for him as a player? I mean, who's to say?
I tell you what I like about it. The fact I knew of him from high school football, knew his coach Seth Parr in high school, but I never would have gotten to know Sawyer. And we had a chance to get to know Sawyer as a great young man.
Really good kid. And I don't want to call him a kid. He's probably married at this point. But no, he's a really good young man and was a fun player to watch. And yeah, he's 23. He's no kid. These old heads in college.
Sawyer?
Yeah, he's 23 now.
Yeah.
But no, he was a fun player to watch. Really nice guy, and wish him well in whatever the future holds for him. But yeah, him playing alongside Leach. I mean, you could tell and talking to Sawyer when he would get brought up how. I mean, for as much as they had a short time period together, if you will, like compared to what the expectations were, he left an incredible impact on Sawyer. That much is clear. And that was one of the cool things last year when he did that quarterback draft video with Gruden, was giving Gruden the old play sheet that he held on to from Mike Leach. That was a really cool video from several months back during the draft process. But yeah, fun story from Eric Morris. Reminds me of Leach a little bit. Miss him. Wish he was still around, but glad there's others that can break up the college football nonsense with some humor here and there. So definitely killing an armadillo at 2:30 in the morning out in the country applies to that.
Yeah, no question. Why we have a couple of minutes before we get to Justin Spears, who covers Arizona. There was a comment, and Craig, you'll appreciate this, and I do as well. And we're not the only ones that realize we went 101 minutes or whatever it was nonstop. Let's see. Did I wash my hands? I went,
Yes, I did.
Scott of Gray Water Watch. I remember when I found 365 Sports when Texas and OU left, desperately looking for news, and there you guys were. Now, y'all have become one of my favorite college sport podcasts, and thank you for that. That's really, we were doing methodically building blocks. We were also probably more core Texas, like the colleges. Of course, Baylor, we're in Waco, but you can be in New York and cover LA. But that story is when so many different fan bases around the country did not know what was next for their school. And they were scared, panicked, concerned, or just wondering what was going on. And that's when we basically were fortunate enough to just grab on to different fan bases throughout the country.
Greywater Watch am I getting some Game of Thrones, some Westeros?
Scott of Greywater Watch is his name in the chat room.
It makes me think of Game of Thrones. I believe that's from Game of Thrones, or maybe there's just a regular Greywater Watch out there, or should I say a Song of Ice and Fire, to be more particular. But either way, glad to have you with us. And yeah, I mean, realignment blew up in such a big way that there are multiple shows that have piggybacked off of what was happening back then and still talk that 95% of the time, because there is an avenue of people just being so interested in realignment alone And so, yeah, for that to not just be speculation back then, I mean, there was some level of that, but for it to be like real moving parts, not like, no, like in 6 months, like it was all happening real time. Once that Brent Zwerneman story broke about Texas and Oklahoma, like it was just boom, bomb went off and everybody was left scrambling. And yeah, we were in a good position to be on ground floor and to be kind of in the epicenter of it. I mean, as a show based in Texas, like not only looking at the Big 12, which we've been covering, but also just those programs being in the Big 12. Now suddenly they're not. Okay, what does that mean for them? What does that mean for this other league? What does that mean for the leagues like the Pac-12? So suddenly we're talking Pac-12 all the time, being told that there's no chance we're making up stuff, this, that, and the other. And by the way, Arizona is going to be in the Big 12 this year, and so is Arizona State, and so is Colorado, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that was a crazy time period. Gained a lot of new people, and I'm glad we did.
All right, let's break, Rez, and come back with Justin Spears. Does a great job for the Tucson Star. He covers Arizona also with the radio and the podcast that he does as well. We mentioned Noah Fafita to start the show, and we'll mention him again and talk to Justin about that. Thank you. This is 365 Sports and the Smoak Show. We have a sponsor of this show that is a big tech fan. You guys know him. His name is Kim Coulter. But also Kim is the owner of North Star Funding Partners. And I remember when he contacted me about his business, he became a fan of what we do. And he started telling me about his business. And, hey, he's doing well. I also remember he's very giving to those who are a part of this station, whether it's a producer or one of us who's on the air. But he also has a great business, North Star Funding Partners. And if you heard of the new IRA, the new Retirement Advantage, it allows young business people, men, women, who are doing well, making good money, but not like overly wealthy, but allowing you to find ways to protect your money so you can set yourself up for the future. Maybe you have a 401k. Maybe you have a savings account. Maybe you have this and that, but have you set yourself up efficiently for what you need for when you retire? Not just for you, but for the business you leave behind, the legacy in your family who you want to take care of. And you can do that. North Star Funding Partner, here are the numbers to call. They will help you set up ways to take care of your future. 623-256-6902. 623-256-6902 and NorthstarFundingPartners.com.
It's in the major leagues for 24 years. And let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
Score big on your next ride during the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Car. Score your biggest savings of the year right now on Buick. Get a 3-row 2026 Buick Enclave and save $8,500. Or non-GM owners can save $6,750 on all 2026 Buick Envisions in stock. Get here now or go online and save thousands on Buick at Richard Car. Find championship savings and win on your next deal at their Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Car.
At Richard Car, we give you more.
Pepperoni Magnifico. Pepperoni Magnifico. Marco's Pepperoni Magnifico. Classic and crispy cut pepperoni, 3 melty cheeses, all on our fresh made dough. And starting at just $12.99 for a large, it's no wonder Marco's was named America's favorite pizza chain.
This 4 o'clock hour is brought to you by Stonewood Dental, your one-stop shop for your dental needs, specializing in teeth cleaning, fillings, crowns, sealants, root canals, IV sedation, extractions, implants, bridges, dentures, full mouth restorations, and bioaesthetic dentistry. Our priority is your comfort from the moment you walk through the front door. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak and David Craig.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. We do appreciate your time on 365 Sports. And Justin Spears, someone we got to know back during Arizona's run in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Watch his timeline. He does a fantastic job, and he joins us on 365 Sports from the Tucson Star and more. Thank you very much, Justin. Appreciate your time. Good background, by the way, with those helmets behind you on the shelf. We got a chance to visit with Noah Fifita at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco. I like his style, but I've read more and more on stuff you've written and others. This kid seems to be almost too good to be true.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, David. Appreciate being on the show. And yeah, I mean, I'm actually currently writing Noah Fifita's story as we speak. Right before I came on, Arizona football announced that they are putting up billboards in Tucson and in Phoenix to promote Noah Fifita's Heisman candidacy. And it's crazy because when you look at the odds for a Heisman Trophy, like if you look at FanDuel Sportsbook, he's got like the 32nd best odds. There are 6 quarterbacks that are above Noah Fifita, 6 quarterbacks from the Big 12 who are above Noah Fifita as far as odds go. And it's a kind of a little bit disrespectful, in my opinion, for a guy who was a first-team all Big 12 quarterback, a guy who's considered arguably the greatest quarterback in Arizona history. And so, yeah, I mean, they are promoting Noah as a Heisman candidate. Will he be a Heisman candidate? We'll find out. But, yeah, I mean, I just go back to a few years ago when Noah became the starter in 2023. It was against Stanford. It was the Pac-12 opener when Arizona was a part of the Pac. And Noah was the first guy out there for warmups. This was a backup quarterback, and he was the first one out there about 3 hours before kickoff. So it says a lot about him just kind of always being ready for the moment and being prepared. And then when he got the moment, he took it, ran with it, became the starter in 2023. Arizona went 10-4 or 10-3, became the 4th team in program history to win 10 games in a season for the Wildcats. And then the following season, they go through the coaching change. He stays at the U of A. It's a bad offense, right? The old offensive coordinator, Dino Babers, it just wasn't a good fit for Noah, and you saw Noah regress. And with Noah regressing, you saw Arizona regressing, and that's why Arizona went 4-8 in 2024. And then Brent Brennan, give him a lot of credit, went out and hired Seth Doege, the offensive coordinator, and it's been a match made in heaven. Seth Doege was a high-level quarterback at Texas Tech, one of the best in program history, and he's also an up-and-coming play caller too. And you saw the match of Doege and Noah and Arizona's offense. Arizona went from one of the worst offenses in the Big 12 to now putting up a little over 34 points per game and having one of the best offensive attacks. And a big part of that was because of Noah Fifita and his heroics. And Noah, if you look at statistically, I mean, he's 800 yards away from passing Nick Foles for the most passing yards by an Arizona quarterback. He already passed Nick Foles for career passing touchdowns. And then the stats coupled with the fact that he has chosen Arizona time and time again, he had millions of dollars offered his way to go to another program, but he stayed at Arizona. And so he appreciates legacy. That means a lot to him. And another thing that's about Noah that's kind of fascinating is he's a 5'8" quarterback. He's one of the smallest quarterbacks in college football, and yet he's one of the best. And he is a perfect quarterback for the University of Arizona. He's small. People underestimate him. People down here in Tucson, we feel like a lot of people underestimate us. And he is going about representing Arizona, representing the football program in a really good way. And he also gives back to Tucson too. He's got a foundation. He hosts football camps. He's giving back to the community. He'll take care of his teammates. He'll buy his guys food and whatnot. So Noah really is just kind of like a 1-and-1 quarterback and a generational guy. And you could definitely see why Arizona is promoting him to be a Heisman candidate.
Very excited that he decided to stick around because I know some of his buddies have not. They went off to Washington or whatever, but just stoked to watch him this year. And I was going to ask you why you think he's underrated, but you kind of laid it out there. He's not a pro prospect type of guy. He's 5'8". He's not at a major, in the headlines all the time school and all of that, but it does feel like there's a quiet, and maybe it's not so quiet, but there's a confidence brewing for this season for Arizona. And this time a year ago, there was some serious doubts still about Brent Brennan and sort of kind of on as warm of a seat as you could be entering a year two, really. It's night and day, is it not? The feeling around Brent Brennan, how would you describe a year ago to now how they feel about him leading this program?
Yeah, the vibes are completely different down here in Tucson because, like you said, a year ago, after coming off a 4-8 season, it was like, okay, Brent, you messed up year one. How can you bounce back in year two? But you got to give Brent a lot of credit because, he went out and he made a lot of changes with the staff. He brought in Seth Dagey as offensive coordinator. He promoted Danny Gonzalez to defensive coordinator. And sure enough, after that switch, Arizona had the best passing defense in the Big 12, one of the best passing defenses in college football. So the changing up the coordinators, and he severed connections with some friends and longtime colleagues. But Brent had to do what was right for Arizona and the betterment of the Arizona football program. And I think they also realized that they were kind of just done kissing ass, right? When Brent first got to Arizona, they were trying to retain all the guys that won 10 games in 2023. And they were, with the portal opening up and all that, they were being very careful with how they talked to players because they didn't want to scare anybody off. And I think Brent realized, we can't do that. We want to have players that want to be here at Arizona. We got to recruit players that want to be at Arizona and also have a lot of experience. If you look at the portal and the guys that they got last year, there were a lot of guys that were from FCS Group of Five, but they had a lot of game reps. They had a lot of snaps. And so they took that experience and they came over to a Power 4 school like Arizona, and it was, the hit rate as far as transfers go, it was high for Arizona. So they did a lot of really good work in the offseason, and they got Arizona to a point now where they can start winning football games, but they're also bringing in high school guys, and they're developing too. There were some really good freshmen last year. They're going to have some really good freshmen this year. So I give a lot of credit to Brent Brennan and his staff. They understand as far as the haves and the have-nots, the pyramid of college football. Arizona, they got to be real strategic about the kind of players that they're bringing in. They're not waving these big old checks around like Texas Tech or some of these football programs. So they got to be very, like I said, strategic about the kind of guys that they're bringing in. And so far, over the last year plus, it is paid off for the Arizona Wildcats. And the guy that we just talked about, Noah Fafita, he's the linchpin of this program. He's the guy that is the glue that holds everybody together. And so when you have that, when you have a good culture, you could do some good things.
No question. I saw notes, and I do check your camp notes, Justin. Zachary Henning, who's going to be a starter on the offensive line, was he in Tempe and visiting Arizona State, and an Arizona assistant coach went up, not a long drive, but drove to Tempe to visit with him, brought him back to Tucson, and he commits to Arizona?
That is true. So Zachary Henning, he's a transfer center from Washington, and he had a number of offers when he entered the portal, and one of those offers was ASU. So he went to Tempe and went on his official visit, and then when he was done, he texted Arizona offensive line coach Josh Oglesby and said, "Hey, I'm done. I'll be coming down to Tucson soon." And Zach thought that he was just going to fly from Phoenix down to Tucson, which is like a 15-minute, 20-minute flight, right? It's an hour and a half drive, right? So you're not up in the air for long. And Arizona's offensive line coach, Josh Oglesby, who's a mountain of a person. If you stood next to Josh, you will feel very small. And he was like, well, shoot, I mean, I can come pick you up right now if you'd like. And he got in his truck and drove to Tempe and picked up Zach Henning in his truck. And then another interesting detail about that story is Zach Henning, when he committed to Washington, because he's an offensive lineman and he loves pancakes, he committed with a big old stack of pancakes. And so he got the nickname Pancakes. Well, Josh Oglesby made sure that he had a nice full stack of pancakes in the car waiting for him when they drove down from Tempe to Tucson. And Oglesby was like, hey, man, take it easy on those pancakes. That butter and syrup, like, this is not a rental car. This is my truck. So please don't get any mess in the car. And they just talked about country music. They talked about the culture at Arizona, and they just hit it off. And as soon as Zach got to Tucson and stepped on campus, he knew this was the place that he wanted to play at. And Zach's going to be a good addition to Arizona. He's the only newcomer offensive lineman that is going to be a starter. But unlike last year, Zach has experience playing center and playing in high-level games, where last year Arizona's center, Kaina DeCambra, they moved him from guard and tackle to center. So Zach doesn't have to learn the position that is center. And based off of everything that I've seen in camp, Arizona has a really good center in Zachary Henning. And come to find out, he's the best golfer on the team too. So I had a lot of fun. I'm glad you brought that up, David, because as a guy that played football, that played center, that plays golf now, and is an alumnus of the International House of Pancakes class of 2017, I had just an absolute joy writing that story.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Justin, anybody who's done any prep work on Arizona, you're going to come to the point where you look at the secondary and you go, oh boy, that's probably a big question mark for them. Multiple guys drafted. The room just basically cleaned out. I know they've recruited around it, but is that the tippy top of the list of man, we don't know? And why is that maybe less of a concern or not as big of a concern as maybe it looks like on paper, in your opinion?
That is definitely a big question mark for Arizona, because when you look at the guys that they lost, we're talking about Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, and Treydon Stukes. These are three guys that played a combined 6,700 snaps at Arizona, and all at Arizona. So that's a lot of production, a lot of experience. I mean, these guys were the heart and soul of the defense for the last couple of years. But Arizona, they feel really good about the guys that they brought in. They brought in 8 transfer portal additions in the defensive secondary. But it's interesting because, you know, I do think that Malcolm Hartzog, the transfer from Nebraska, he's not like Treydon Stukes, because Stukes is like 6'2", 6'3". Hartzog is like 5'8", you know, but he plays like a pit bull, and he has really good kind of spatial awareness and is really good at just using his instincts, and he has a nose for the football. You saw that last year in that big game against Cincinnati and Kansas City. And Malcolm Hartzog has been impressive at that slot cornerback spot. I thought he was going to be kind of like a box safety type, but he looks like he's going to be the replacement for Stukes at slot corner. And then safety, the strong safety and free safety, I thought maybe it was going to be one of these newcomers that they got in the transfer portal, but I think Gavin Hunter, the third-year guy, or fourth-year guy, I should say, from Hawaii, he looks like a guy that could definitely step in. He actually started for Stukes at slot corner last year, but then Stukes came back and took back his starting spot. And then if you also look at that free safety spot, kind of a surprise addition or a surprise ascension from Quinn Olson, who's a walk-on. He's a walk-on from Iowa, is from Sioux City, Iowa, was a great quarterback at the high school level. And I don't know if he won a state championship or not, but he had like 35 touchdowns as a quarterback. But he could be the next Treydon Stukes story, because Stukes went from walk-on to then starter to then second-round draft pick. And Quinn Olson, you know, when he started in the spring, I thought, okay, this guy, we'll see. I mean, there's some guys that are out. He's banged up. We'll see if Quinn Olson ends up sticking around. And then come to find out, Quinn Olson has been a constant guy in that starting secondary. So they feel really good about the guys that they have returning. And they also have some really good transfer portal defensive backs too. But there's no doubt that defensive secondary, after the year that they had a year ago, and then losing 5 guys to the NFL, 4 of them got drafted, and then the undrafted guy, Aiden Garnes, got a pick 6 for the Buccaneers the other night. Like, that's 5 NFL defensive backs that you have to replace. That is a very tall task. So we'll see if Arizona can do that.
You know, I just realized this. I was looking at the roster, and Arizona State is known for having a lot of Texans on their roster. Arizona has, I think, 17 players from the state of Texas, both sides of the ball. Seth Dagey, of course, offensive coordinator, played at Texas Tech as well. I did not realize, I knew Arizona had some Texas kids, but that's a nice chunk for them to come into this state, which is not that far away to get some talent.
Yeah, Texas is definitely a priority for Arizona. Well, in-state, of course, they want to make sure that they put a fence around Arizona. But Arizona's in a very unique spot because they are in between California and Texas. So you can go get, some of the best in LA. And then you could go into Texas. And as you guys know, I mean, heck, a 3-star guy is a high-level football player from the state of Texas. And Arizona, because they are in the Big 12, they could sell Texas kids to come to the U of A because at least once a year, they're going to be playing a game in Texas, and then they go to Texas for Big 12 Media Days. And then if you look at Dallas and Houston, there's a lot of direct flights from those airports to Tucson. And so they pitch their families that. And now, like I said, with the Big 12 now being affiliated with Arizona, that has been a focus for the last few years. There's no doubt about it. And they've got some really good guys from the state of Texas. I'm excited. You guys may not hear his name a lot this year, but I think in the future, Caleb Jet Smith, a freshman wide receiver who played at Allen High School.
Yeah.
As you guys know, Allen High School is a legitimate football program.
Yep.
He's been very impressive as a true freshman. And so these high school football programs in Texas, it's a religion. It's year round. These guys are just all invested in football. So when they come to a program like Arizona, yeah, there's definitely a learning curve. But for some of these guys, they can hit the ground running, and we've seen that in years past with some of these Texas guys.
So, Justin, not going to hold it against you how right or wrong you are, but I was just curious, as somebody who follows the team as closely as you do, and knowing the pulse of, the schedule, the roster. What are your expectations for this year? What do you think are the expectations for the program and the fan base as far as what they hope to and believe they can accomplish this season?
So I'm going to say the win total, and then it's going to be totally not right, and then I'm going to get cold takes. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. But, I do think that this team is capable of replicating what they did last year. And they won 9 games, lost that bowl game. I think they can get to 9, maybe 10 wins, right? Because if you look at some of their losses, like against BYU last year, double overtime loss, if they fall in that football near that goal line, they're not going to double overtime, and Arizona wins that football game. So that was a game that was literally lost by inches for Arizona. And then against Houston, the Cougars won in Houston with a walk-off field goal. So those are 2 games right there that Arizona could have easily won if the ball bounced a certain way. Now, with that being said, Arizona could also have more games this year where the ball doesn't bounce their way and they lose more games. But I think, if you look at last year, really the only loss where you're like, okay, Arizona was just bested that day, and that was Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, where they lost by a few touchdowns. Outside of that, it was a very competitive schedule for Arizona last year. And I do think that week 2 game against BYU this year, that's going to tell a lot about this Arizona team. If they can somehow go up to Utah, to Provo, Utah, and sneak away with the win, that sets the tone for the rest of the season. I think that definitely puts the conference on notice that this Arizona team, there might be a force to be reckoned with. And, I mean, BYU is going to be tough. You also have Texas Tech in Lubbock on Halloween, which is going to be another difficult game. I know that they've had their quarterback situation with Brandon Sorsby, but Will Hammond's a pretty damn good quarterback too. And Texas Tech added some really good pieces. So there's some games up there where I'm like, oh, boy, that's going to be tough. Rich Rodriguez and the West Virginia Mountaineers in Morgantown, that's going to be a really hard game too, going up against their former coach. So it's going to be an interesting schedule. I do think that there are some tough games on there, but if the ball bounces a certain way, I totally see Arizona winning 9 or 10 games. And if it's any more, we'll be talking about Noah Fafita being a Heisman candidate.
It'd be great. It'd be a great story. Yeah, and Fafita, I saw the post you put up a couple hours ago, the billboard with Noah Fafita, the Heisman. Good luck to him. And also, Justin, great stuff covering Arizona the way you do. Basketball back in the spring and now with what we have with you on football too. It's an exciting team and one that was better than anyone thought. And maybe they do take – but even if they just validate and do what they did last year. That means that they've steadied the ship and they're now consistent and not up and down like a lot of teams in the Big 12 seem to do. Thanks for your time, buddy. Have a great day.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Justin Spears with us, covers Arizona for the Tucson Star and also the Wildcaster, and then also a part of ESPN Tucson on the radio as well. Good football team. The Noah Fafitas, I'm a fan and rooting for him, and I love his story. I really, really do. I don't know. I think I did tell you about the story that when Brennan arrived, and a lot of people he all of a sudden shows up, and here's Fafita, the star quarterback who could have had some sort of an edge to him. He jumps in the back of a golf cart that Brennan's in the front seat, didn't even see him. His wife's in the back, the second seat, and eventually tells him, your quarterback's trying to say hi to you. And eventually they had a chance to do that, and that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, you started off the show with that story.
I know I did, but that was a long time ago.
For
that
new
was like,
viewers, but if you tell it again, then we're going to have to
here's
put
what
you in
happened.
timeout.
So Brent Brennan.
Yeah, no. Twice I'll say, okay, you're welcoming in new viewers. The third time, and you're not remembering that you've told the story, but it's a really fun team on paper that has a chance to, I think, replicate what they did last year. I'd agree with Justin there. I think in my final estimation or prediction, I had them around 8-4 regular season. A schedule that's not incredibly complicated, but does have some potential potholes, including week 2 at BYU. I mean, right out of the gates, they're going to be going to Provo. So they'll have the tune-up with Northern Arizona, beat them 60 to whatever, and then turn right around and go to Provo. So a mega matchup there early on for both teams. And that's the one, like that's the type of game that they jump up and nip BYU, then, hey, man, all right, well, we're in for some craziness then, because there goes the first loss in week 2 for a team that some people have in the college football playoff, right? Or so like that would be a really big deal. So I'm looking very much forward to that one. Northern Illinois at Washington State. So that Big 12 BYU road trip's just sandwiched into their non-conference. But that month of November in particular, well, I guess the very last day of October 31st, those last 5 games, you've got Tech on the road, TCU at home, Utah at home, K-State on the road, Arizona State at home. So that's a pretty strong final 5 weeks, and who knows where you are at that point. But I think that they could be in really good shape, like looking at this schedule. I would say I would give BYU the win at home right now, but I won't say that's 100%. Like anything can happen, right? I would say besides that, they should be favored in all of their first 7 games outside of BYU. So they could very well be, if that's the case, like 6-1 and in really good shape in the league, or 7-0. And then entering that stretch where it's like, all right, now you're going to Lubbock, you're playing Utah, you're going to K-State, who we expect to be much better. TCU is always solid, if nothing else. And Arizona State's a massive rivalry game. So, yeah, I think that second half of the season could be real interesting for them. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing how all that plays out.
It is. It's a team that surprised everybody last year, getting a lot, but not a lot of attention because of Tech and BYU, Utah. But man, they've got a pretty good setup with what they have, and with I didn't ask them about Ismail Mahdi. They had a couple of players come back. I saw a story again when Ismail Mahdi walked into the locker room that all of the running backs in the position group in the film session or whatever just loved it, that he was back on the team, and some of them now going to get less starts or less reps because he's back on the roster.
Yeah, so last year, I mean, they started off 3-0, then lost to Iowa State in an ugly loss in Ames, and then beat Oklahoma State. They were 4-1, but then they lost double overtime. You might remember a game they absolutely should have won against BYU. Was a frustrating game to watch as a person who was like hoping for chaos. Not so much rooting against BYU, but as just somebody watching on that random Saturday going like, all right, give me all the chaos I can have. Arizona upsetting BYU looked like it was on the menu, and then they couldn't close it out, and BYU pulled away eventually in double OT, lost to Houston, but then, won 5 straight to close out the year. including beating Arizona State and what was at the time a top 25 Cincinnati team with Sorsby. So, they were pretty good, but I think those losses right there in the middle section kind of dented any sort of ramping up and hyping up of them, and then kind of put them in a pickle where they weren't really in the heart of the race. So, they were kind of an afterthought, but they were a good team.
I'll tell you what, because of how their schedule went, the results went, I lost track of them. And next thing you know, I'm like, people kept bringing up, well, so-and-so still has a chance. And I know that maybe with 2 or 3 weeks, almost everybody does. I'm like, no, they damn sure do. Hey, one note, this has been that stretch where every time you turn around, somebody has passed away. Craig, you're not going to probably remember him, but Jeff Watson, he played at A&M Consolidated 4 consecutive years, was a starter on their 1991 high school state championship team. He played at Baylor. He passed away at the age of 50. Jeff Watson was a feisty, tough, throwback quarterback, and that news came down. Sad news as yet another name and a player that we probably covered or know or knew is gone at the tender age of just 50. Rez, you want a break here? Let's take a break because we didn't take one for, what was it, Craig, an hour and 41 minutes because of our great guest that we had on, and thanks to Justin Spears. When we come back, 365 Sports with Andrew Valades, The Wheel, quizzes, poll results, and more. This is 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. And I just saw somebody in the chat room with a sarcastic note about Dr. Petty and Pioneer Steel and Pipe were all the same. Stop. I know what you're going there. Stop. Dr. Petty will help you out. If you're 38, 42, 50, and you're starting to feel like your energy is not the same, if you're having problems with your sex drive and you're not performing the way you need to, could be a lot of reasons for that. One of them could be your testosterone level has dropped as part of father time. Sometimes you might be fortunate it's not you. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Contact them online. Tell them I sent you. And tell them you're having some issues with your energy, sleep habits. You just don't feel the same. And your sex drive and performance. He will set you up to get your blood work. He'll take care of that appointment. He'll get your blood work. They'll draw your blood, get the results. And if your testosterone level is too low, he'll know. He'll get in touch with you to give you the option to get yourself back to who you want to be. Dr. Kent Petty at Petty Clinic, lowt.com.
90 years ago, Bert Cozen Ford made a commitment, not just to sell Fords, but to serve Waco. What began in 1936 wasn't a transaction, it was a partnership built through hard work, quality, and integrity. Mile by mile, for over 4 generations, Bert Cozen has been driven by Waco. Thank you for the road we've traveled together and the miles that lay ahead.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide. Affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, We're proud to protect all Texans.
When you play hard, sometimes you fall hard. Sports injuries require special treatment. At Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, our team of expert doctors provides athletes and active adults with comprehensive sports medicine care, diagnostics. Whether you're in high school, college, or beyond, we'll help you get back on the field. Call on the team physicians for Baylor Athletics. Call Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics.
You were made for more. More than the ordinary. More than the expected. You were made for big moments. Made for new friends. Made for the kind of experience that stays with you. And yes, made to discover. Made to create. Made to turn hard work into real opportunity. At Tarleton State, college is more than what happens in a classroom. You were made for more. You were made to be a Texan.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints. Shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
From the TFNB Your Bank for Life studio. Now, it's time for the Smoak Show. Presented by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance. We are Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, your insurance provider built by Texans for Texans. And we've been protecting families in our great state since 1952. TFNB, your bank for life, serving Central Texans since 1889. It's time for the Smoak Show on 365 Sports with David Craig and Craig Smoak.
Before we get to Super Chats, the wheel, quizzes, and poll results, did the noise in the background when we had Justin Spears on remind you of playing and covering the game, covering the game in the post game at TCU at Amon Carter?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I didn't do that but a couple times, but
you're lucky.
They were notorious, I guess still are. Well, no, they've got do they still do the
I have not been to the last time they played at Amon Carter. We're talking TCU football in the post game. The home team has a much nicer setup. The post game for the visiting team is out underneath the stands in the whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Armed Forces Bowl when they had.
Well, we had to walk like 300 yards. They have like people are crates and whatever up and down the concrete bottom, and I mean it is like chairs and tables. It's rattling like that in the background.
It's very half-assed on TCU's part,
Yeah.
and for a school with so much money, like it's just intentional. I think like there's no other explanation for why there's not a better way to conduct visitor post-game interviews. I was thinking the last time we were there, they set us up in the really nice, like it looked like it's the team meeting room or like a classroom in college with the raised seats. That's where they had the bowl game post-game. But yeah, for a regular season game against whatever opponent, like that visitor is just in the concourse below the. I mean, it's like it's intentional. I mean, at this point, because I don't see that anywhere else. I've seen some like kind of rigged up setups where they clearly don't use this for this all the time, but like they made the best of it. TCU is just like whatever, enjoy the clanging in the background.
It's at the bowels of the stadium, and they're moving stuff. People are trying to get the hell out of there. Texas at one point. They had it underneath like the stairwells at DK Royal Memorial Stadium, and it was in one of those rooms where because of the stairs, you had kind of a roof that it was very small. And I'll never forget one time we had the story about Browse with McMurphy. He came in, he was mad they lost 56-50, and I think he may have damaged one of those metal chairs that we sat in to listen to the players and coaches. All right, Super Chats, anything there? Do we have them? I think we do. And there's Bobby B. Well done, Brett McMurphy. Thank you very much, Bobby B., on the story Brett McMurphy had today on the long segment with us on 365 Sports. There's $9.99. Also, Kim Coulter, actually great, great interview much better than I anticipated. Thank you for having him on. And I think he's talking about Brett McMurphy.
Yeah, I don't know what you anticipated, Kim, other than just you saw maybe the name Bryles and did what a lot of people do and immediately just turn the other way and whatever. But like I was saying earlier, there's complexities to things, and there certainly was with that story. And no, I don't think saying or acknowledging as much as empowering or like casting a vote for somebody to be declared anything. It's talking about what actually happened, which I don't think was happening all the time back then. But now you can look back on it and have a little bit more of that. And yeah, it was one of those where I kind of looked at it initially and was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to talk about this some more. But Brett did a good job with it. And yeah, I was glad we had him on as well. And it was fun talking to him.
All right. So there we are. Kim actually would have loved Art Bryles as the head coach at Texas Tech when there was some flirtation there. Your pet cat again. All right. I know you're excited about my Super League. Yes, I am. But you need help. One, the 32 teams that won a natty 45 or later are in. So this is your pet cat again. We're talking tonight like at 8. If you won a national title from 1945 and later, you're in the Super League. The second team, the other thing is, like, for example, Texas Tech can get in. Right now, they wouldn't be, according to your pet cat again, by winning a natty at the Division I level. So
it doesn't say Division I, it says 1B.
Yeah, but I think he meant Division I level. There might be divisions like 1A, 1B, whatever.
I think Division I would be 1A.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe there's like a 1B division for those who haven't won a natty that he's talking about, that you like promotion style. You win that and then you move up. And I'm filling in blanks here, but that's what I would fill in. That's how I fill in the blanks. Is I assume that's what.
Well, but if they win, but they win a natty, it's going to be at the Division I level. You're talking to me tonight, your pet cat again. I got so much
to get into the Super League.
Yeah,
they'd have to win it at the 1B level to then be promoted to the Super League.
Well, there is no 1B level.
But in your Pet Catagin's system,
that's what I'm saying. That's why it's taken so long to kind of gather this up, and we're going to release it. So we're going to. Hey, thank you very much for your pet cat again for your patience. Like Taylor McCark waiting for a long time for his segment, and Bracket Cat 1 hour, 52 minutes straight without a break.
Did more in one show straight, no commercials, and some people do an entire week. So yeah, that was an Ironman endeavor, but we made it through unscathed and hopefully enjoyed it because there was a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, thank God that we needed to, and thank you very much, Rez, for rolling through that time. So now let's roll into spinning the wheel in the segment with Andrew Valade.
Is a college football utopia.
You need to reroute because the clapping's too loud. They can't hear you.
Are you just trolling me right now?
No, I mean that. Like when you started talking, I could not hear you. Because Rez has got us the applause.
Okay. Is a college football utopia possible, or do you think the chaos and pain is just part of the whole process? I think there's a way where college football is the best version of itself it's ever been. But I think for that to happen, college football has to make some concessions they just clearly aren't willing to make. And I don't know that the answer is collective bargaining. So many people are quick to say, like, this is the solution. Is it? So I thought we had a couple other times where things were portrayed as being solutions and they weren't. They just led to less solutions, really, or they made it to where we needed more solutions for more things than we thought we would need it for. So I think it's possible, but I think the hard part is there's just so much greed and selfishness and self-importance involved. You're talking about 100+ schools. You're talking about 100+ ADs and presidents and chancellors and athletic. And like, there's just only so much money. And the Dragons are the biggest, baddest, nastiest Dragons are trying to hoard all of it for themselves and not share it with anybody. And there's some people believe that that's their right. And then others that believe that it's unwritten rules that you should try to help out everybody. So for those reasons, it's all over the place. And I don't know that you can solve that, but I do think there's bound to be a way to maybe play by some rules that you don't really want to, but they at least clean up some of the messiness. And you just realize this isn't going to be what it was. And it's going to be different, but it's still going to be unique. And the best part of making some concessions is that there's other things you can go and then get done that do make sense. And you make this the best version of itself that it could possibly be. So, utopia, as far as the way we used to know college football, that's not happening. That's all out of the box. It's never going back to the golden days. But I do think a really cool, updated for 2026 and beyond version of college football is possible. But chaos and pain is part of the process to trying to get there. And there's a lot of selfishness and greed that might prevent it from getting there.
I think they are close to utopia now because the numbers, the ratings, all of that is better than ever before. But utopia to me means we can go into a season and there's not going to be a bunch of catfight. And that doesn't mean there's not arguments like in 97, who was the national title, or 94, whatever. But knowing when you go in, you know the rules and they're not going to change. I think at least it would be nice for 4 to 6 years.
I mean, nobody's going to agree on everything because, again, for the reasons I mentioned, so there's always going to be fights over the playoff number and things like that. But I do think to roll into a season and not have random NFL training camp guys suddenly getting back into college football on August the 19th, that would be utopia. No former pros who were in training camp yesterday for the freaking Buccaneers who are now like, I'm going to go back to Auburn because this judge just ruled this thing over there. Like, that's the BS that we got to get rid of and get out of the game. And that's what's preventing utopia right now. And it does take chaos and pain to untangle the mess that was made through complete intentional inaction over many decades by greedy, selfish people. The greed and selfishness is why we are where we are. And so it's going to take a while to untangle, but I do think there's some progress is being made. And I really do think that there could be an awesome version that does involve players getting paid and this, that, and the other that still feels like college football, but it's at its best, but got to get through the court cases first.
Yeah, absolutely. Just constant. It's like today, there's some more guys became eligible and they're in the NFL practicing with jerseys and helmets. Let's go to the 2 quiz questions. The first one is, Oregon quarterback Dante Moore return for 2026 instead of a potential $50 million NFL deal. Which sport does he play to decompress from football?
What's the big decompression sport here? I feel like
I don't think tennis is decompression.
I don't think baseball, unless you're just hitting in the batting cage, is much of a decompression sport. And you got a lot of people you need to play that. Tennis, pretty hardcore. Basketball, it's pretty fast pace. So I would think that golf's kind of the leisure sport here. I mean, maybe tennis is more of a country club sport, or they're on par with one another, but I would say it'd be one of those two. And the one that I know more than any other, more so than any tennis people I know that people are attracted to, is golf. So I'll say golf.
Golf is a relaxing sport. It's also like is exhilarating and like frustrating because it's a tough game to play. Unless he does pick up basketball with, I don't know. I'm going to say golf. That would be for me. Here it is. Dante Moore uses golf as his primary mental release away from football, transfer from UCLA, sitting behind Dylan Gabriel. He took up golf to handle pressure and expectations. Now a 16 handicap at Eugene Country Club. Coaches see golf's mental focus, shaking off bad shots and managing risk as the perfect mirror for playing quarterback. At quarterback, even the best have thrown an interception, pick sixes, whatever. They got to drop it, move on. In golf, you cannot let a 4-foot putt on the hole before affect you on the next tee box, and that's a good thing to do. 16 handicap, he's got some work to do, but as an athlete, he'll get better and better. So we're 1-0. Before moving to LA, the Brooklyn Dodgers were named after local fans. What hazard were Brooklyn residents dodging in the streets?
I would think it's not steam trains. So we can go ahead and eliminate that one.
Right? Yeah.
Taxis are obviously the New York sort of stereotypes, but
the yellow trolleys is something I thought about.
The what?
The yellow trolleys.
Yeah, they're on here, so I'm just kind of talking through it. Yeah, yellow taxis. I don't know back in when the Dodgers were being named, if yellow taxis were a thing, though.
No,
so
I'm
that's what I'm
talking about.
through.
I meant trolleys. I think the street trolleys. Would
I'm with you. I'm saying, I don't think taxis were around back then.
No,
so it's
I'm
not
sure
that.
they were in the early 1900s. Taxis.
In the 1890s, yellow taxis.
Yeah, I don't know when taxis were. Not sure.
Man, I'll eat that if I'm wrong, but I think to your point, it's much more likely trolleys or bikes is what I'm trying to get at. So you say trolleys, then that seems like it would work.
Yeah, because you have to dodge if there were taxis. You have to dodge delivery bikes, maybe newspapers, whatever. But I think trolleys, there's a huge part of what you have in the Brooklyn area. So I would say street trolleys.
All right, there you go. The Dodgers were originally nicknamed the Trolley Dodgers because Brooklyn pedestrians had the Dodge Network streetcars outside Ebbets Field, affectionately known as Dim Bums. Sorry, I can't read that. Dim Bums. The legendary franchise broke baseball's color barrier with Jackie Robinson in 1947, captured their first and only Brooklyn World Series in 55 before moving west to Los Angeles in 58. So, there you go. Deductive reasoning, and didn't know that. I didn't know the Dodgers were named after
Trolley Dodgers. Sounds like it'd make. Taxis began in the 1600s, but what we think of taxis, they were more carriages at that time. Oh, that's a reminder of something I need to do. All right, the Dodgers, we're 2-0 today. Very nice. Let's get to the poll results. Which AP preseason All-American running back will have the best 2026 season? Man, all of these guys are very good. Fletcher had the great run at the end for Miami. Martin, if he stays healthy, but Kewan Lacey is something else.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably who I would give my vote to as well. I think that offense is going to be pretty nasty, even though Lane is gone. Ahmad Hardy, is he going to play this year? I mean,
I've heard nothing but that I've not heard if he's been cleared, but I haven't heard anything negative about like he's not going to play.
Based on what he's dealing with, though, I mean, he's definitely not the top of my list. So, if he plays this year, and I haven't actually tried to look at that in a while, just need to get updated. But, that'd be a great story. So, anyways, I mean, no bad choice here. All four really good players. But I would say, I'd put my money on Kewan Lacey being the best of the bunch.
Yeah, Fletcher became quite the thing, and a big part of Miami making that run near the end. But Kewan Lacey, 43% gets the vote from our audience. Let's go to the last poll result. What's your reaction to Roger Goodell guaranteeing an overseas NFL team? What is, if you see the number, what would you say, Craig, would have been your answer?
Pure greed. Pure greed is what it is. They've basically maximized what they can do in this country and Mexico and Canada to an extent. I think there's a good chance maybe there's a Canadian team in the future. I think it'll be more difficult in Mexico City. But, the whole reason for trying to be all over the world to force everybody to now have to play an overseas game is all for money and growth reasons. And they're like any other big company they could make billions and billions and billions, but shareholders never want to see the paper machine stop working. So you got to figure out how to keep making more, and they can't do it here. They can't go put a franchise down in San Antonio and make any negligible, amount of money that's going to be a difference maker. So you got to go put it in freaking London or something. So that's absolutely what they're doing. They're growing the game, but with very intentional purpose to keep maximizing profits. So pure greed absolutely is why they would have an NFL overseas team.
I agree. I don't like it. I understand the occasional, a couple of 3 times they have teams go over. Jacksonville for a while was like the team because they didn't have much of a crowd. And of course they're renovating that stadium, redoing the stadium. Pure greed, no doubt, 60%. Because it's got to be a pain in the ass for a team to go play overseas. Just like in college now, they're going to Dublin in that game with North Carolina, TCU, and others. All right, thank you very much. 1,286 votes. That's a big number. So much from Andrew's 2 different poll results. Rez, thank you. Michelangelo, Garrett Ross, thank you. Our audience, thank you. The super chats today, 13, 15, 18, like almost $40. We appreciate you for that. I'm starting to get in negotiations with our union about getting a piece of that for all the people that are a part of the show every afternoon. Craig, see you tomorrow. We have Steve Shaw, who's the head of the NCAA football officiating group. He's the director. He's going to join us tomorrow about any of the rules that need to be explained. And there's a punt rule that's different than even the special teams coaches in many places did not want to see change. That and more. Thank you for your time. Good night. The Smoak Show on 365 Sports.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get summer ready in a new Jeep Wrangler Sport. Your choice, 0% for 36 months or just $33,848. Want more truck and more fun? Check out the 2026 Jeep Gladiator Mojave. Your choice, 0% for 36 months or save $10,000. Take the top off and hit the road. Allen Samuels Jeep.
Come by, let's be friends.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
This 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson and Brad Wilson in Waco, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe, with an individualized approach to addressing your financial needs, including education, savings, planning for retirement, and protection strategies. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, making sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself.